Chapter 4668. Everything happened so fast that everyone was caught off guard. When they finally reacted, Crown Prince Jiao had already turned into a bloody mist and spread out. Small. It was just a small universe master. Yixian wasn't even interested in putting away the blood mist that was formed after his body exploded. He didn't even care about it. 1. In the blink of an eye, in less than half a breath's time, a powerful universe master had been annihilated just like that. Both his body and soul had been annihilated. It was so shocking that everyone who had witnessed it with their own eyes held their breaths subconsciously. Their eyes widened, and their bodies trembled violently. On the left side of the void space, that undying emperor of the Blood Dragon clan had bloodshot eyes. He exclaimed in shock, "Crown Prince!" An exclamation broke the dead silence in the void space, and all the great beings who were in a daze due to extreme shock finally came back to their senses after their bodies shook violently. For a moment, there were sounds of gasps and cries of surprise that sounded like a tidal wave from all over the place. What? Crown Prince Jiao died just like that? This is the core ancestor of the Blood Dragon clan. Not long ago, he had just arrived in the void fragment of the untainted land from the three main planes of the universe. He had never fought before. I didn't expect that his first expedition would end up like this. The Blood Dragon clan has lost a lot of face this time. It's a total loss of face. Besides, this Crown Prince Jiao is said to be the son of the bloodline ancestor of the Blood Dragon clan, Nine-Headed Blood Dragon. Now that he was slapped to death, whether it's for public or private reasons, Nine-Headed Blood Dragon will be furious when he hears about this. Something big is going to happen. I don't think so. So what if it's Nine-Headed Blood Dragon? Legend has it that his power is only at the primordial great being level. Facing an extremely powerful desolate master, does he have the right to be furious? In my opinion, he will most likely tuck his tail between his legs and swallow his anger. The magic hall is not something he can afford to provoke. A supreme desolate sovereign is enough to sweep through the void of this chaos world fragment. No one can match her. That might not be the case. Legend has it that the Nine-Headed Blood Dragon was already at the 8th stage of the primordial era since countless years ago. It was at the peak of the 8th stage of the primordial era, and was only one step away from reaching the 9th stage of perfection. Although the Nine-Headed Blood Dragon suffered serious injuries in the primordial war that destroyed the entire untainted world, so many years have passed. Now that the end of the untainted world is coming, the Nine-Headed Blood Dragon's injuries have mostly recovered. Therefore, it is not completely impossible for it to make further progress. If he has already reached the primordial great being level, he will be at the same level as the supreme demon of the magic hall. They are both at the initial stage of the desolate master level. If they really fight, it will be hard to predict who will win. After all, the Nine-Headed Blood Dragon is an ancient late-stage great being who has lived from the primordial era until now. However, the master of the magic hall has never been heard of before. Obviously, he did not live from the primordial era until now. Instead, he is a supreme desolate sovereign who was born in the current era. There is still a gap between the two. Along with the exclamations, the 300 emperors and emperors from the Blood Dragon, Green Rock and Battle Lion clans finally became completely obedient. The last trace of hope in their hearts was extinguished. Their eyes flickered from time to time as they began to think about their escape route. After all, even the crown prince of the Devouring clan had been slapped to death with a single slap. In that case, there was clearly no expert of the current era that possessed the ability to rescue them from this fragment of space. If they wanted to survive, then they could only rely on themselves. Boom! Hong! Long! Long! At the same time, an earth-shattering roar sounded from the universe void 100 billion miles ahead. Everyone subconsciously, they looked toward the source of the sound, and their expressions could not help but become strange. Gaze in the line of sight. The elite fortress army that had followed the Blood Dragon Crown Prince into the forbidden land of Rising Sun was now retreating. The commanders of the 10,000 fortresses, big and small, gave the order at the same time. The kinetic energy cabins were fully opened, and they fled quickly along the path they came from. Same as at the same time, the six-headed Blood Dragon, who was in the sky above the elite fortress army, also retreated rapidly. At this time he was still in his human form. He did not even have time to show his battle state before the battle was over. Or it could be said that it never really started at all. At this moment, the six-headed blood dragon was feeling extremely complicated. Regarding the death of the blood dragon crown prince, he naturally did not feel any grief or anger in his heart, let alone anger. However, it was inevitable that he was worried and frightened. He was the Tao protector of the blood dragon crown prince. However, the blood dragon crown prince was now dead, and not a single strand of hair was left behind. As a Tao protector, he was unharmed. No matter where he put it, this matter could not be justified. Without a doubt, he definitely could not return to the blood dragon clan. Once he returned, the monstrous anger of the nine-headed blood dragon would undoubtedly pour out on him. At that time he would become a scapegoat and a punching bag for the nine-headed blood dragon to vent his anger. As a result, he would be buried with the blood dragon crown prince. That guy's death was purely his own fault. The six-headed blood dragon felt that it was not worth it to be buried with such a person. It was precisely because of this that when the blood dragon crown prince was slapped to death by the terrifying ape in front of him, he did not even have the slightest intention of making a move. Of course, even if he made a move, he was not the ape's match at all. In the end, he would end up like the blood dragon crown prince and be easily slapped to death by the ape. As far as he was concerned, as long as he could escape smoothly and leave this terrifying rising sun forbidden area, it would be the greatest fortune of all. After leaving, it was impossible for him to return to the blood dragon clan. He could not even casually show up in public anymore. The nine-headed blood dragon would not let him go. He was only a ninth-stage universe master at the pinnacle level, not even a universe supreme master. Faced with the pursuit of a primordial great being, his only choice was to choose a remote place to hide and spend the rest of his life in seclusion. This was very sullen, and it made him very unwilling. However, in order to survive, this was the only choice. In fact, even this kind of helpless choice might not really be realized at the moment. It was very likely that it would be a laughable extravagant delusion. Because the six-headed blood dragon understood that although the terrifying ape in front of him was still 100 billion miles away, if the ape wanted to, he could instantly turn him into ashes with just a thought. Because the so-called escape was the deciding factor, and it depended on whether the ape had the intention of letting him go. Just as these thoughts surfaced in his mind, the space-violent ape, who was 100 billion miles away, suddenly turned its head and looked in this direction. Its eyes met the six-headed blood dragon's, and the corners of its mouth twitched. Then its voice came from afar. "You still want to escape at this point? Don't you think it's a bit ridiculous?" Chapter 4669. Since you are already here, why are you in such a rush to leave? Since we are all on the same side, let's just stick together. Xiao! Rumble! As Yixian's voice sounded out, the violent ape suddenly waved its hand. In an instant, a terrifying invisible force shot out, and in the blink of an eye, it arrived in the distant void hundreds of billions of kilometers away. With a deafening boom, the 10,000 kinetic energy cabins, which were retreating at full speed, were instantly wrapped up by a terrifying force and shot back from hundreds of billions of miles away, stopping abruptly at the edge of the hundreds of millions of battleships of the Blood Flood Dragon race, Azure Rock race, and Battle Lion race. Luo. At the same time, the 6 Blood Flood Dragons were forcefully pulled over by Yixian from the distant void hundreds of billions of kilometers away, landing in front of the 300 emperors and emperors of the Blood Flood Dragon clan. All emperors and above, come out immediately. Whoever dares to hide will be killed immediately. The target of this voice was none other than the 10,000 fortresses of various sizes that had just been teleported over from afar. Xiao! Xiao xiao xiao! Very quickly, silhouettes rushed out from the 10,000 strongholds. Their bodies trembled as they retreated towards the area where the close to 300 emperors and emperors from the 3 blood dragon clans were. As expected of the elite army chosen by the crown prince. Just from the 10,000 strongholds, close to 100 emperors and emperors rushed out. After entering the space on the left, close to 400 emperors and emperors were captives. Among them, the strongest of them all was the 6-headed blood dragon. Even Zhao Dong, Qiannan, Sun Shi and Li Bei were far from him. 6. The Bloodhorn Dragon's cultivation had already reached the peak of the 9th stage of the Universe Master Realm, which was half a step into the Supreme Realm. In the vast and boundless universe void of the Rising Sun Forbidden Area, It was definitely the most powerful existence besides Yixian. But unfortunately, when facing Bao Yuan, a supreme desolate venerable with terrifying cultivation, even he was no different from an ant. He might even be inferior to an ant. However, to Yixian, the six-headed blood dragon was obviously valuable. The key was that he didn't have a single supreme-level master with him. The moment he met a slightly stronger opponent, he had to fight personally. It was really annoying. Even more. Moreover, the six-headed blood flood dragon seems to have a deep grudge against the flood dragon crown prince that I slapped to death earlier. Therefore, after subduing it, there shouldn't be a problem in terms of loyalty. Xiao. Old man, what's your relationship with the little loach that I just slapped to death? A weak sound broke through the air. Violent Yuan moved his body and appeared before the six-headed blood dragon in the blink of an eye. He grinned and asked with a playful expression. Here. Although he was in the form of Violent Yuan, the language of the human race came out of his mouth. He didn't disguise his voice because there was no need to. Therefore, upon hearing his voice, Zhao Batian, Peng Jingxiao and Shi Bafeng, who were not far away, were startled at first, then turned their heads and exchanged glances. Soon, a trace of suspicion gradually surfaced on their faces. Previously, they were punished by Sun Shi. Each of them was given 10,000 big ear brackets. Their faces were slapped until they looked like pig heads, and they were even seriously injured. However, they were, after all, Dao sons who were valued by their respective races. They carried many healing pills with them. Besides, their cultivation was originally at the level of a middle-stage undying emperor, so they weren't considered weak. Hence, after swallowing the healing pills that they carried with them, their injuries were already healed. But the reason why a suspicious expression appeared on their faces at this moment was because the voice that came from the mouth of this ferocious ape with a terrifying cultivation was truly too familiar. They had all dealt with Yixian before. Naturally, they were quite familiar with the freak who was one of the 7 great evildoers. Although more than 10 years ago, when the great races and the top forces of the 3 main planes of the universe entered the void of this fragment of the untainted land from the Shadow Devil star field of the second universe, some people found that Yixian, the Star Master of the Sky River Star, seemed to have set off as well. The entire Sky River Star was almost empty. The violent Yuan in front of them was clearly a powerful supreme desolate master. Even if the Star Master of the Sky River Star, Yixian, was a freak, how could he grow to such a height in less than 20 years after entering the void of this fragment of the untainted land? This was absolutely impossible. Brain, as these thoughts flashed through their minds, Batian Jiao, Peng Jingxiao and Shi Bafeng exchanged glances again. They shook their heads and threw this outrageous guess to the back of their minds. The universe was so vast, and there were many people who looked exactly the same, not to mention that they only had the same voice. He was really thinking too much. This old man is his Dao protector. The 6-headed blood dragon naturally did not dare to ignore the inquiry of a supreme desolate master. Although he was not very interested in the identity of a protector, and even felt a little disgusted at this moment, he still answered truthfully. However, the expression on his face was clearly a little helpless, and there was a strong sense of indignation in the helplessness. Because this so-called protector, in the eyes of Crown Prince Zhao and the 6-headed blood dragon, was actually a one-time substitute that could be sacrificed at any time. T protector. The violent Yuan immediately rolled his eyes, curled his lips and said, "Now that the little loach is dead, but your protector is still alive, can you still return to the Blood Dragon clan?" The 6-headed blood dragon was at a loss for words, and a suspicious look appeared on his face. Because in his opinion, the supreme desolate master in front of him, whose cultivation was so terrifying that it made people's hair stand on end, should not consider this problem. Unless thinking of this, the 6-headed blood dragon's eyes suddenly burst out with a glimmer of light, and his breathing became a little hurried. His chest rose and fell, but he did not dare to ask. He was afraid that this was just wishful thinking. That would be too embarrassing. It seems that you are not stupid. You have understood this Star Lord's meaning. Seeing the 6-headed blood dragon's expression, Yixian naturally understood what he was thinking. He immediately nodded and said, "Let's be frank. The cultivation of this Star Lord's confidence is still weak. Otherwise, that little loach is really not worthy of this Star Lord to personally deal with. Sitting on countless subordinates, but no general to use, this is indeed awkward." This Star Lord sees that you don't seem to be doing well in the Blood Dragon clan. You must be quite suppressed. Since that's the case, why don't you give up the darkness and join this Star Lord's magic hall?" At this point, Yi Xian's words suddenly paused. With a wave of his hand, a ray of light shot out. In the blink of an eye, it arrived near the six-headed blood dragon and hung in front of him. It was a level 27 Supreme Treasure Pill, emitting an extremely strong Supreme Realm aura. Chapter 4670. Alright, don't rush to make a decision. I have plenty of time. Let's swallow it first, he said. As he spoke, he raised his hand and pointed at the level 27 Supreme Treasure Pill in front of the six-headed blood dragon. This scene was too unexpected. Everyone in the surrounding void was caught off guard and was stunned on the spot. Soon Xiaodong, Qiannan, Sun Shi, and Li Bei, as well as the other 8 emperors from the Rising Dawn Forbidden Land, were the first to react. They all looked upset. Naturally, they could tell that this was a level 27 Supreme Treasure Pill. It was too precious, and it should have belonged to one of them. However, as the Demon Master had no generals to use, he could only let the six-headed blood dragon have it. Following this, the Blue Ox, the three-clawed serpent dragon, Long Shantang, Yu Linglong, Long Ao, Gong Jun, the Black Wind Tiger, the Howling Moon Mastiff, and the rest of the 98 martial monarchs of the Star Nomadic Army were left speechless after a brief moment of astonishment. Seeing such a precious level 27 Supreme Being pellet being taken away by the six-headed blood Jiao, they felt extremely pained. However, what Raging Ape said was the truth. He had no generals under his command, and he couldn't just randomly find a Universe Master, or even a middle or late-stage Universe Knight, and ask him to personally deal with him, right? The Rising Dawn Forbidden Land needed a Universe Supreme Master, and he didn't have one on his side. He could only take one from the outside. But, although this six-headed blood flood dragon was from the enemy camp, Bao Yuan did not say anything. He clearly did not have a good time in the Blood Flood Dragon clan and was not loyal to them. He was the most suitable candidate to be absorbed. As for the close to 400 emperors and undyings from the Blood Dragon, Green Rock and Battle Lion race, including Jiao Batian, Peng Jingxiao and Shi Bafeng, they were all stunned. Their expressions quickly turned weird. He was a human. They couldn't figure out what this starry sky berserk ape with a terrifying cultivation base was going to do. First, I'd been played for a fool by him earlier. He was clearly on the same side as the Azure Ox and the nomadic army under his command, yet he put on an act and said he admired the Azure Ox's unyielding character, and he even rewarded him successively. They were all tempted. Badian Jiao, Peng Jingxiao, and Shi Bafeng were so excited that they jumped out, wanting to take advantage of him. They didn't expect to be beaten into a pig's head. Now that they thought about it, their eyes were still filled with tears. Everything was still in front of him. Now, after this ferocious ape slapped the Blood Devouring clan's crown prince into a bloody mist from 100 billion miles away, he actually turned around and gave such a precious treasure pill to his guardian, the six-headed Blood Devouring clan's crown prince. His way of doing things was simply too mysterious and unfathomable. It was simply impossible to figure out what he was thinking. This is for me? The six-headed blood dragon race. The six-headed blood dragon was completely dumbfounded. He hesitantly raised his hand and pointed at the level 27 supreme treasure pill floating in front of him. He looked at Yi Xian with uncertainty, his face full of suspicion. Although he didn't know what the pill was, he could clearly feel the strong aura of a universe knight. Vaguely, the six-headed bloodhorn dragon even had a strong and instinctive desire to swallow the pill, because it was certain that the pill meant a lot to it. However, this was too strange. Even if this terrifying space ape wanted to take him as his subordinate, there was no need for him to give him such a precious treasure pill, right? With his power, did he have any room to resist? How could he? He could only obey. Just swallow it. Why are you talking so much nonsense? The ape rolled his eyes and waved his hand impatiently. Hurry up. I'll give you half a day to refine and break through. I won't wait for you if you miss it. Half a day? Refine breakthrough? The six-headed blood dragon race asked. The six-headed blood dragon was shocked. He didn't understand what the ape wanted him to break through. Was it the level of a universe supreme? Just this pill, and it only took half a day. How was this possible? Although he had doubts in his heart, The six-headed blood dragon did not dare to ask again. The violent ape of the starry sky was famous among the starry sky ferocious beasts. The one in front of him was the extremely powerful supreme desolate sovereign. It was already impatient now. If he dilly-dallied and provoked it, it could slap him to death. Although the treasure pill floating in front of him couldn't help him break through the level of a universe supreme in half a day, from the strong aura it emitted, there would be no harm in swallowing it. Since that was the case, there was no need to hesitate. Just like what the ape said, he would just swallow it first. Thinking of this, the six-headed blood dragon didn't hesitate anymore. He immediately opened his mouth and sucked the pill into his stomach. Tight. Then he sat down cross-legged in the void, closed his eyes, and started to refine. Xian did not leave, so no one in the surrounding space dared to leave. They could leave now. For a time the entire space fell into a deathly silence. Everyone, including Zhao Dong and the Green Ox, had their hearts in their throats. Their gazes were focused on the six-headed blood worm that was being refined with its eyes closed. This was the level of a universe supreme, second only to the ancient desolate era supreme beings. Could he really break through in half a day with a small pill? This even Zhao Dong, Green Ox, and the others who had swallowed other treasured pills of different levels couldn't figure it out. Time passed. In the blink of an eye, almost half a day had passed. Hiss at this moment, the six-headed blood dragon, who had been sitting cross-legged in the void with his eyes closed and refining the energy of the treasure pill in his body, suddenly opened his eyes. He raised his head and let out an earth-shattering hiss. Along with the hiss, an extremely powerful aura spread out from his body. He was a level 1 universe supreme. I broke through. I finally broke through. Hiss as the roar faded away. The six-headed blood dragon's face was filled with incomparable excitement and joy. He roared endlessly. From this moment onwards, I, the six-headed blood dragon, have become the supreme being of the universe. I am invincible in this world. I no longer have to suffer that vexation in the blood dragon clan. Hiss. Bah. Before he could finish his words, Bao Yuan rolled his eyes and spat lightly. Only then did he continue. Aren't you a little too excited? Aren't you just a universe supreme? Invincible. Are you out of your mind? Besides, you're just a universe supreme. Is there a need to be so excited after breaking through? When you break through to the ancient desolate era supreme being and become a being on the same level as the nine-headed blood dragon, can you yell at the top of your lungs? You're one level weaker than me, and you're already yelling like this. You're embarrassing me. Chapter 4671. As he calmed down from his excitement, six-headed blood dragon calmed himself down. In the void space, he immediately turned over and kowtowed to Yixian. Six-headed blood dragon. Greetings, master. This was clearly the rhythm of complete submission. Not only was it because of the level 27 sovereign treasure pill, but it was also because Yixian had given him a new life, given him the ability to hold his head high, and no longer be vexed by the blood-fled dragon clan. There was no doubt that from now on, six-headed blood dragon would become a trusted general of Yixian. He would be able to shoulder heavy responsibilities. There would be absolutely no problem with his loyalty. This was the result that Yixian wanted. At least, within a short period of time, he finally had a universe supreme under his command. The awkward situation of not having a general to rely on had finally become history. Xiao. While he was thinking, Bao Yuan waved his hand again. In an instant, a fine ray of light shot out and hung in front of six-headed blood dragon. Although it had a circumference of 100,000 feet, it was only 9-colored godly medicine. There was no great medicine of chaos. It was not that Yixian did not trust him, but six-headed blood dragon was, after all, a newcomer. In this aspect, if he immediately agreed with Green Bull when he had not made any contributions in the slightest in this situation, he would immediately agree with Green Bull. It would be unfair to treat Bull and the rest of the old fellows equally. Anyway, for six-headed blood dragon, who had never swallowed any great medicine of flesh, just this 9-colored godly medicine of 100,000 feet in size was enough to make his cultivation level break through to the late stage of level 7 or level 8 universe supreme. In a short period of time it was enough. It was enough for him to use. Thank you, master. Xiao, since he had already surrendered, six-headed blood dragon naturally would not hesitate anymore. He immediately thanked Bao Yuan and generously waved his hand to put away the 9-colored godly medicine. Naturally, He could see that this cultivation resource, which he had never seen before, was extraordinary. Its degree of preciousness was probably no less than that of the magical supreme treasure pill earlier. At this moment he was full of joy and secretly felt lucky. This 9-colored godly medicine can help you break through to the advanced stage of Universe Supreme level 7 or 8. Nodding slightly, Yixian continued, once you've finished using them, I'll naturally return them to you. Record them down first, and use them as a deduction for future battle achievements. Go find yourself a planet with life and use it as your abode. You can enter seclusion in peace and stabilize the realm you just broke through. Right now, you're only at the first level of this realm, so you're still a bit weak. However, with the war at hand, there's not much time for you to continue breaking through. But don't worry, once the war is over, I'll give you some time to cultivate in seclusion. Try to become a pinnacle 9th order universe supremacy as soon as possible, and I'll give you another supreme treasure pill, just like the supreme treasure pill just now. Then, you will be able to break through the bottleneck of a major realm and smoothly break through to the primordial realm. Hiss! So that pill is called the supreme treasure pill, and in the hands of the demon master, there is actually an almighty treasure pill? Hearing this, 6-headed blood dragon trembled violently, and he exclaimed in shock. But how is that possible? With just one treasure pill, you can break through the bottleneck of a major realm in such a short time and smoothly break through. This is simply unbelievable. Why is it impossible? Didn't you just swallow a supreme treasure pill yourself? Pursing his lips, Bao Yuan pointed at Green Ox and the rest of the upper echelons of the nomadic army. Before you arrived, all 98 of them had just consumed an emperor sealing pill and successfully broke through. Then he turned his right arm and pointed at Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, Sun Shi, and Li Bei. Not long ago, the 4 of them also swallowed a supreme treasure pill, which is why they successfully broke through to the universe supremacy realm. Besides, there are also Eternal Lord treasure pills, Almighty treasure pills, and even Desolate supreme treasure pills. In short, from Marquis Undying to Primordial supreme level, I have a treasure pill for every major realm. As long as your power reaches the pinnacle 9th order of the previous level, after swallowing it, you'll be able to smoothly break through in a short time. Breakthrough. Of course, all the treasure pills, including the huge 9-colored godly medicine that I just gave you, are the most top-tier cultivation resources. It's impossible to give them away for free. Even the subordinates under my command have to exchange for them with battle credits. Of course, if you don't have enough battle credits, but you're in urgent need of treasure pills and godly medicines, you can record it first and use your battle credits to pay for it later. For example, you are in such a situation now. I understand. Only now did the 6-headed blood dragon recover from its extreme shock. It took a deep breath, then immediately knelt down on one knee towards Yixian and bowed. My lord, don't worry. After this subordinate stabilizes his cultivation, he will immediately come out of seclusion and fight for my lord. Just so I can accumulate battle credits. Shio. After that, 6-headed blood dragon didn't waste any more time. With a flash of his body, he shot toward a life star in the distance and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Demon Master, these guys. How should we deal with them? At this moment, Zhao Dong had already taken a step forward and cupped his hands towards Yixian. This allied army comes from the Blood Flood Dragon, Azure Rock, and Battle Lion clans. In the past 10 years or so, these 3 clans have all chased after Brother Azure Ox's nomadic army, and more than one at that. This time it's really detestable. How about? Then Zhao Dong raised his right hand and made a chopping gesture. Nearly 400 emperors and emperors from the Blood Dragon clan, who were waiting in the distance, were all scared out of their wits. Their faces immediately turned pale. Plop, plop, plop. Before Yixian could reply, a series of plop sounds came from the void on his left. Turning around, the nearly 400 emperors and emperors of the Blood Flood Dragon, Azure Peng, and Battle Lion clans, without exception, all followed the example of the 6-headed Blood Flood Dragon and knelt down on one knee towards Yixian to pay their respects. The reason for this was because they were frightened by Zhao Dong's words of wanting to kill them all. These fellows were all experts at the emperor level or above, and it was not easy for them to obtain such a powerful cultivation. They had just arrived in this vast prehistoric heaven. They hadn't had time to show their talents in the fragment void. Who would be willing to die so easily? Of course, the more important reason was because of Yixian's words just now. In his hands, he actually had precious pills of all levels from the Marquis Undying to the Primordial Supreme. As long as one reached the 9th level of perfection of any level, after swallowing the precious pill of the next level, one would be able to break through the level within a short period of time. Breaking through the bottleneck of the world. This was definitely a temptation that no great warrior in the universe could resist. If they didn't know about this, it would have been fine. However, now that they knew about it, especially after seeing Green Ox and the other upper echelons of the nomadic army, as well as Six-Headed Blood Dragon, they were all extremely fast. After this breakthrough. Chapter 4672. You all. What is the meaning of this? Turning around, he saw the close to 400 Emperors and Undyings from the Blood Dragon, Green Rock and Battle Lion race all kneeling on one knee in the space. None of them dared to step forward. A dark light flashed in the eyes of the Berserk Ape, and a playful smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. What's wrong? Are you begging for mercy? I can't make the decision on this matter. In the past 10 years, the ones you bullied are them. As he spoke, Bao Yuan raised his hand and pointed at Azure Ox and the rest of the 98 nomadic emperors in the void to his right. Yixian really didn't put these fellows in his eyes. At most he could just kill them all. If they died, there would be at least hundreds of millions of battleships that could be used as battle prowess. It would be enough to replenish the severely depleted nomadic army. Hence, Yixian didn't plan on making the decision on whether these fellows lived or died. Everything would be left to Green Bull and the other upper echelons of the space nomadic army. These fellows obviously saw that Yixian wasn't joking, and their expressions changed. However, there was still hope in their hearts. As they exchanged glances among the over 60 emperors of the 3 Blood Dragon clans, a few of the strongest ones began to speak out. Demon Master, in the past 10 years, we have indeed hunted down Green Bull and his space nomadic army many times. However, this is just a matter of perspective. If we really want to talk about it, there's actually no right or wrong. After all, the space nomadic army has warriors from the 3 main planes. This is a fact. If it were any of the upper echelons of any race, they wouldn't have done anything. We can't just sit by and do nothing. We're just following orders. But now the reason why we're kneeling and begging Demon Master to take us in is because we want to live, but more importantly, we want to fight for opportunities. Demon Master, you've said before that we should abandon the darkness and join the light. To put it bluntly, isn't it just a matter of wanting to climb higher? We came from the 3 main planes of the starry skies to this strange void fragment of the untainted land in order to seize the opportunity to break through and improve our cultivation. This is not wrong in the first place. Every expert in the starry skies has this kind of obsession. But now we have seen the bright future of the Devil Palace with our own eyes. We yearn for it and are willing to surrender wholeheartedly. In the future, we will fight for the Devil Lord and accumulate battle merits in exchange for our own cultivation. What's wrong with a chance to raise our strength? Demon Master, please take pity on us and give us a chance. After which, the 400 emperors and emperors from the 3 races clasped their fists again. Their gazes were firm as they locked onto Yixian's face, full of expectation. These words were very pertinent, and there was not the slightest bit of exaggeration. It had to be said that even Yixian was a little moved. However, he still could not make a decision on this matter, so he did not express his opinion. Instead, he turned to look at Green Ox and the other upper echelons of the space nomadic army. These guys were also in a dilemma. On the one hand, they had deep resentment toward the 3 races of the Blood Dragon, Green Rock and Battle Lion. On the other hand, the Rising Sun Forbidden Land was in need of people now. This time, there were many captives from the 3 races of the Blood Dragon, and they seemed to be sincere in surrendering. If they were to take them in, it would be of great significance. As these thoughts flashed through their minds, Green Ox, 3-Clawed Dragon, Long Shan Tang, and the other upper echelons of the space nomadic army looked at each other and secretly communicated with each other using their divine senses to discuss. Yixian did not rush them. He stood aside with a smile and waited for the final result. No matter what decision Green Ox and the others made, he would support them. Soon the final result was out. Green Ox and the upper echelons of Sangji's tribe did not speak, but 3-Clawed Dragon, Long Shan Tang, and the other upper echelons of the captive parliament stood up and spoke one after another. We can take you in, but you can only be a captive army. We will observe and keep you. And the hat of our old captive army will be taken off from today onwards. In addition, all the large fortresses with a diameter of 100,000 meters in your hands will be contributed as compensation. From now on, all the battleships of our old captive army will be large fortresses. We won't even want the small fortresses with a diameter of 50,000 meters. We'll treat you accordingly. There's nothing else. In any case, if you want to get benefits, you'll have to rely on your battle achievements to offset it in the future. This point you can't fool anyone. These words were not said to the upper echelons of the three races of the Blood Flood Dragon, but to Yi Xian. He naturally understood the meaning behind it. After shaking his head and smiling bitterly, he immediately waved his hand and said, "Since that's the case, this matter is settled. Today, the captives of the three races and all the battleships will be organized into a captive army. The old captive army and the space nomadic army will be disbanded. In addition, today, the large fortresses of the captive army will be handed over to the old captive army to use. From now on, under the Magic Hall, there will be 4 major armies. They are the Ferocious Beast Army, the Remnant Army, the Nomadic Army, and the Captive Army." While speaking, Yi Xian immediately explained the details of the division of the major armies under his command. In short, the Space Nomadic Army, the Space Beasts in the Rising Sun Forbidden Land, the Desolation Survivors, and the captive army of the three races of the Blood Flood Dragon were all mixed up. Then, according to his division rules, they were divided into 4 major armies. The first was the Ferocious Beast Army, which was formed by the space beasts that originally lived in the void of the Desolation World Fragment. This included the Ferocious Beast Army in the original Space Nomadic Army, and the Space Beasts in the Rising Sun Forbidden Land. The current commanders were Green Ox, Yu Linglong, Long Xiao, Gong Jun, Black Wind Tiger, Howling Moon Mastiff, and a few other Undying Emperors in the Rising Sun Forbidden Land. There were a total of more than 40 of them. As for the space beasts of different levels in the army, there were about 100 million of them. The second was the Remnant Army, which was formed by the Sangji tribe and the remnant tribes in the Rising Sun Forbidden Land. The current commanders were Zhao Dong, Qiannan, Sun Shi, Li Bei, and the other 3 Universe Knights, as well as more than 20 Undying Emperors from the Sangji tribe. The total number of survivors in the army was also about 100 million, and there were 10 million different types of battleships. The third was the Nomadic Army, which was actually the captive army from before. However, now that they had passed the final test, they were no longer captive army. The entire Nomadic Army was made up of great beings from the 3 main planes of the universe. There were humans, the second universe, and even some slave races from the first universe, as well as great beings from the original Wanluo Federation. The current commanders were the 3-clawed dragon, Long Shan Tang, and the other representatives from the captive parliament. There were a total of 60 of them, and they were all Undying Emperors. The number of soldiers in the army was the largest, with a total of more than 1 billion. The battleships were all huge fortresses with a diameter of 100,000 meters. There were a total of 20 million battleships. The fourth was the captive army, which was made up of the Blood Flood Dragon, Green Rock, and Battle Lion race captives. Chapter 4673. The division of the 4 armies was quickly completed. From then on, the Blood Dragon, Green Rock, and Battle Lion race captured a few 100 million battleships, close to 10 billion soldiers, along with over 60 emperors and over 300 emperors. They formed an army, becoming the 4th army of the Magic Hall Captive Army. Although they would be on the same side from now on, and they truly desired a level 25 venerable pellet, the 2 immortal emperors of the Blood Flood Dragon and the War Lion race were too embarrassed to open their mouths and ask Yi Xian. They requested. After all, they had just been captured and they felt awkward. It was indeed hard for them to ask. Xiao! Xiao! Just as the 2 of them were in a dilemma, 2 rays of light shot toward them and stopped abruptly in front of them. When they looked at them carefully, they saw that they were 2 precious pills, and they were emitting extremely strong Universe Knight auras. The expressions of the 2 half-step venerable ones who had just been captured changed drastically, and they gasped. Even though the 2 of you haven't made any contributions, you will still be under observation. At this time, Yi Xian's voice sounded out. But now that we are in need of people, the captive army does indeed need 2 powerful Universe Knights to oversee it. These 2 Universe Knights will be given to you first, and in the future, your battle merits will be deducted. When they heard this, the 2 of them were overjoyed. They immediately waved their hands and carefully put away the treasured pills that were suspended in front of them. After that, they repeatedly kowtowed and expressed their thanks. "Take care of yourselves." Yixian nodded and waved his hand, letting them head to their assigned areas. He chatted with Green Ox and the others for a while before finally turning around and entering the magic hall. Rumble. With a thought, the black demonic palace suspended above the atmosphere of the cavern star slowly descended. Soon it entered the atmosphere and sat firmly on the peak of the most majestic peak. Yixian immediately waved his hand and took out the Shunnong cauldron, suspending it behind the peak. With a flash of his body, he stepped into the cauldron filled with 9-colored mist, entering the space within the cauldron. He crossed his legs and sat within the cauldron, in the air above the mountain. Previously he was pressed for time, which was why he didn't break through consecutively. But now that everything was settled, it was finally time for him to consume a level 28 supreme pellet and break through to the true primordial realm. Swish! Swish, swish, swish! As he waved his hand, a large number of faint sounds of breaking through the air rang out. In an instant, fine rays of light shot out and hovered in front of him. They were the cultivation resources that he took out from the undying world in his body for this breakthrough. This included the all-evil origin elixir and the 9-colored divine medicine. There was even a canopy of chaos great herbs with a radius of 10,000 feet. When everything was in place, Yixian immediately activated the power of the Shunnong cauldron's domain, compressing all the cultivation resources to the size of an infant fist. With a wave of his hand, Yixian swallowed the fist-sized bead and quickly dissolved it. Walala! As soon as all this was done, when the energy ball that had been compressed to the size of an infant fist entered his mouth, the sound of chains rattling could be heard from Yixian's body. All the resources that he had swallowed earlier were instantly dissolved. In the blink of an eye, a majestic energy river appeared in Yixian's body. With rapt attention, Yixian activated the large river of energy that had just been formed in his body. He continuously circulated it through his 100 meridians with all his might. This time he was trying to break through the bottleneck of a major realm. So when the energy river in his body flowed through his meridians, the pain was incomparably intense. However, Yixian was already used to it, so he completely ignored it and gritted his teeth to bear with it. Because he was trying to break through the bottleneck of a major realm, the breakthrough this time was slightly hindered. It took him a full 8 days to completely refine the energy river that had formed in his body. As the great river of energy circulated through his meridians time and time again, it finally completely disappeared and merged into his soul and body. Yixian had only accumulated enough energy to launch a single attack, but the shackles had already broken. The anticipated system notification sounded in his mind very quickly. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of the ancient Dongshu technique. Current realm. Level 1 of the powerful beings of the primordial era. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of the vital energy and blood. Current realm. Level 1 of the powerful beings of the primordial era. A successful breakthrough. After entering this void fragment of the primordial era for dozens of years, Yixian's cultivation level had finally officially broken through and entered the powerful beings of the primordial era. Previously, his original body's cultivation level was at the peak of the 9th level of the universe supreme level. After activating the bloodline power of the ancient demon ape in his body, he could instantly reach the 1st level of the powerful beings of the primordial era. If he used the 9 demon ape transformations again and reached the 9th transformation, his combat power would immediately soar to the 1st level of the supreme level of the primordial era. If he took into account the enhancement of his cultivation level due to the vital energy and blood in his body, his actual combat power would be comparable to a 2nd level desolate venerable. However, after swallowing a level 28 supreme level pellet, Yixian officially broke through to the 1st level of the supreme level of the primordial era. After activating the bloodline power of the ancient demon ape in his body, his combat power would instantly reach the 2nd level of the supreme level of the primordial era. If he used the bloodline power of the 9 demon ape transformations again, and directly entered the 9th transformation, his combat power would reach the 2nd level of the supreme level of the universe. In addition, if he took into account the tremendous vital energy and blood in his 60 million miles long body, his actual combat power would increase by 1 level. Currently, The strongest combat power he could display would reach the unprecedented level of the third level of the Desolate Venerable. This was already the peak of the initial level. It could be said that below the middle level of the supreme level of the primordial era, the current Yixian was absolutely invincible. In fact, he still had the Blood Sea secret technique. Once he activated the power of the Blood Sea secret technique, Yixian could instantly condense 3 Blood Sea avatars, each of which had the terrifying combat power of a third-level supreme level of the primordial era. Under the situation of 3 against 1, if he used the Fallen Sky Bow, even if he encountered a 4th-level Desolate Venerable, it was not impossible to kill him. His strongest battle prowess has already reached the 3rd order of the ancient Desolate Realm, and he can only have 3 Blood Sea clones of the same battle prowess. He subconsciously clenched his fists. At this moment, Yixian's emotions were unprecedentedly agitated. As he muttered softly, he was filled with heroism. In this way, I can already fight any existence below the middle stage of the Desolate Realm head-on. Slay them. Not to mention the void fragment of this world, even on the 2 sides of the primordial void, I don't have to worry about anything anymore. I can do whatever I want. But now is not the time to return with the army under my command, enter the primordial void, and gather at the Source Nest headquarters. Chapter 4674. Xiao. With a wave of his hand, the Shenong treasured cauldron turned into a beam of light and entered Yixian's body, disappearing right now. He was still in his violent star ape form, but the 9 transformations devil ape bloodline ability in his body had reached the 9th transformation. Therefore, the aura exuding from his body right now was equivalent to that of a 2nd-order venerable desolate ancestor. With a flash, Yixian stepped out of the atmosphere of the cave star. In the blink of an eye, he was already in the void of the universe outside the atmosphere. Greetings, Demon Master. As soon as Yixian's figure appeared, he heard a wave of shouts. His tone was incomparably respectful, revealing excitement and excitement. Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, Sun Shi, and Li Bei weren't there. Even Green Bull and the others weren't there. They were probably all in seclusion to make breakthroughs. The fact that Yixian didn't have any generals under his command was a huge blow to them. They would definitely cultivate with all their might during this time. After all, as long as they reached the 9th level of Pinnacle, they would be able to make breakthroughs in a short time after swallowing the next level of treasure pill. At this moment, the ones waiting outside Yixian's cave were the 6 blood flood dragons and the upper echelons of the captive army, including the 2 half-step venerables from the blood flood dragon and the Azure Rock clan. Of course, 8 days had passed, and they had all successfully made breakthroughs after swallowing a level 25 night treasure pill. All of them were powerful universe knights. As for the 6-headed blood dragon, needless to say, he had already become a universe supreme knight and was now a powerful first-stage supreme knight. In just a few days, the 3 of them had changed so much. All of this made the other 60-odd emperors and 300-odd emperors of the captive army envious of them. Now these guys were all waiting outside the atmosphere of Yixian's cave-dwelling star. Obviously, they wanted to get some information from Yixian and see when there was going to be a battle so that they could accumulate battle merits and exchange them for top-tier cultivation resources and the most important thing, the various levels of treasure pills among the 60-odd emperors present. Although there was no one at the 9th level of Pinnacle, there were still more than a dozen of them among the 300-odd emperors. Xian's gaze swept across the crowd. With a wave of his hand, a weak sound of something tearing through the air rang out. In an instant, a dozen or so level 24 Emperor bestowed pellets shot out, abruptly stopping in front of these dozen or so Emperor realm experts. Your cultivations have already reached the great perfection of the 9th step. If you don't have a treasure pellet, you won't be able to advance any further. Therefore, the Emperor Sealing Pellet that can advance to the next great realm will be given to you first. In the future, your battle achievements will be deducted. Nodding his head, Yixian turned to look at the others and continued. It's the same for all of you. After your cultivation reaches the great perfection of the 9th step, even if you don't have any battle achievements, you can still apply to the 6-headed blood dragon. The treasure pills will be given the corresponding treasure pills in advance. However, with the way you've been cultivating in the past, isn't it too slow to reach the great circle of the 9th step? Xiao. As he spoke, Yixian waved his hand again. This time, hundreds of purple crystal precious medicines, 9 colored divine medicines, and some other top-grade cultivation resources were sent out by him. They abruptly stopped in front of everyone present. These purple crystal elixirs and 9-colored divine elixirs can increase your cultivation speed by several times, and not just by 1 or 2 times. Although I don't have any battle merits at the moment, I can still distribute them first. When the battle merits are accumulated, I can deduct them. After saying that, he waved his hand. Except for the 6-headed blood dragon, the rest of you put away the cultivation resources and elixirs that were distributed and disperse. Immediately return to your respective cave stars to cultivate in seclusion. The next battle will be against the blood dragon, green rock and war lion. The main camp of the human race. You don't have to participate. Hearing these words, the 400 peerless sovereigns and titled emperors from the 3 races were stunned for a moment, but they soon reacted, excitement and gratitude shining in their eyes. They immediately made their moves and kept the treasures and resources in front of them carefully. After bowing once more, they turned and left. After the upper echelons of the captive army left, Yi Xian immediately sent out a voice transmission that enveloped the entire forbidden area of Rising Sunday. The upper echelons of the 3 great armies, the Emperor level and above, quickly come and see me. The first battle of the Magic Hall expedition is about to begin. Howl! Li, xiu xiu xiu. As soon as the voice of his divine sense fell, in the distance around the huge rising sun forbidden land, inside the life stars of various sizes, figures instantly shot out one after another. In a short period of time, these 3 armies' upper echelons had all gathered in the space not far from Yi Xian. The Ferocious Beast Army's commander, Green Ox, Yuling Long Long Ao, Gong Jun, Black Wind Tiger, Howling Moon Mastiff and the other emperors from the Forbidden Land, a total of over 40 of them had all arrived. The Survivor Army's commander, Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, Sun Shi, Li Bei and the other knights, as well as the over 20 emperors from the Sangji tribe, were all present. There was also the Nomadic Army's commander, the 3-clawed dragon, Long Shan Tang and the other representatives of the Army Council, a total of over 60 of them, all at emperor level. Today, the Magic Hall has officially taken over the world. There should have been a sacrificial battle. After everyone had arrived, Yi Xian turned around and gazed at them. He smiled and nodded, after which he continued, "Coincidentally, the nomadic army has returned. Over the past 10 years, Green Ox and his nomadic army have been in this universe. They have been bullied in the universe. This matter can't just end here. Today, the Magic Hall will begin its expedition. Our target is the Blood Dragon, the Green Rock and the Battle Lion race. Our only request is to completely destroy the headquarters of these 3 races in this space, as a sacrifice to the reputation of the Magic Hall." Speaking to this point, Yi Xian's eyes gleamed coldly. For this battle, the Ferocious Beast Army, the Survivor Army and the Nomadic Army will all be mobilized. Half of their regular forces will be left behind in the Forbidden Land. The 3 armies' joint commanders will be Green Ox, Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, Sun Shi and Li Bei, as well as the 6 blood dragons. Besides, even though I'm in the Magic Hall, my undying consciousness will always be on guard. Even if I meet a universe supreme at the middle or late stage, or even a great being from the ancient era, there's no need to be afraid. At the crucial moment, I'll make a move. Go lead your army and set off immediately." Speaking to the end, Yi Xian waved his hand and turned around, entering the cave star behind him and disappearing. Chapter 4675. Hong! Hong! Long! Long! An earth-shattering roar resounded from every corner of the rising sun forbidden land. It was as though a giant beast had woken up from its slumber. A formless killing aura spread out. According to Yi Xian's instructions, half of the 3 armies, Ferocious Beast, Remnant and Nomadic, were mobilized. All the higher-ups above the Emperor level were mobilized. As such, the number of troops deployed by the Devil Hall in this expedition was truly astonishing. The largest formation was the Ferocious Beast Army. Even if half of them were mobilized, there would still be 50 million ferocious beasts. The Remnant Army, on the other hand, consisted of all kinds of remnant battleships. Although the number was not large, they were all elite battleships that had survived the 10 years of space escape. Each of them was extremely huge, more than 100,000 meters in diameter. Huge fortresses. As for the Nomadic Army, half of them were mobilized, which meant 10 million huge fortresses. These three armies did not seem to be as large as 100 million battleships, but they were all elite forces. An opponent like the captive army, not to mention 500 million battleships, even if they were doubled to 1 billion, they would still be defeated. They were no match for them. And this was only the conventional forces. As for the high-end forces, there were more than 40 high-level ferocious beasts like Green Cow and Yulinglong, Dragon Centipede, Gongjun, Black Wind Tiger, Howling Moon Mastiff, and more than 20 emperors from the remnant race of the Sangji tribe, as well as the three-clawed flood dragon, Long Shantang, and more than 60 nomadic warriors. As for the members of the Council of the Nomadic Army, they were all emperors. There were more than 130 of them, and they were all emperors. It was shocking to see so many of them. Besides, there were also 4 universe knights like Zhao Dong, Qiannan, Sun Shi, and Li Bei, as well as the strongest one, the six-headed blood dragon, who was a universe supreme. It was enough to run amok in the void of the primordial world fragment. Of course, in the base camps of the various races and top powers from the 3 main planes of the current era, there were also universe supremes, and there were even powerful beings in the middle and later stages of the universe supremes. However, that was not a problem. If these old monsters dared to make a move, Yi Xian, who was sitting in the forbidden land of Rising Sun but was paying close attention to this battle, could make a move at any time. Like crushing an ant, he could instantly kill them. Boom! Rumble! In just half a day, the 3 legions were ready. The punitive army gathered at the edge of the forbidden land of Rising Sun was immediately launched. An earth-shattering roar sounded. Immediately, the Green Ox, the six-headed blood flood dragon, Zhao Dong, and the other 6 supreme commanders pointed at them. With that order, they left the forbidden land of Rising Sun. They roar. Roar. Screech. Rumble. At this moment, the forbidden land of the Rising Sun was filled with countless roars and howls. All the ferocious beasts in the forbidden land of the Rising Sun were roaring. The captive army that did not participate in the battle to avoid suspicion fired their cannons in unison. For more than 10 days, the Blood Flood Dragon clan's base camp in the void of the primordial world fragment was deathly silent. Vaguely, there was an extremely uneasy and oppressive atmosphere that slowly spread throughout the star field. The general situation of the star field was getting more and more oppressive. The 2 most powerful beings guarding the star field of headquarters, Crown Prince Zhao and Six-Headed Blood Dragon, who were both universe masters, led an elite fleet of strongholds and left for Rising Sun Forbidden Land more than 10 days ago. Calculating the time, it should have been close to 10 days since the fleet arrived at the Forbidden Land of Rising Sun. However, during these 10 days, there was still no news from them. The entire elite fleet, Crown Prince Flood Dragon, and his protector, the six-headed Blood Flood Dragon, were like a stone that had sunk into the ocean. This situation was obviously abnormal. It was eerie and unsettling. Currently, the most powerful beings in the base camp of the Blood Flood Dragon clan were the 4 Universe Knights who were half-step Eternity Lords. They were all core elders of the clan and had lived for a very long time. Naturally, they had a very keen sense of smell. Because of this, as time passed, the 4 of them felt more and more uneasy. A few days ago, they had even sent a few undying emperors to the edge of the forbidden land of Rising Sun to spy from afar. However, they didn't get any news at all. It was said that the forbidden land of Rising Sun was completely silent, and it didn't seem like a large-scale battle had broken out at all. Something was very wrong. The moment the news was reported, the 4 half-step Eternity Lords panicked. They were almost certain that something had happened to Crown Prince Flood Dragon. However, he was originally a mid-stage Eternity Lord, and there was another half-step Eternity Lord beside him, who was also a half-step Eternity Lord. If even they couldn't return from the forbidden land of Rising Sun, these 4 old fellows, who were only half-step Eternity Lords, wouldn't be able to cause any trouble even if they went there. Hence, the 4 of them didn't dare to go there at all. Instead, they went to the base camp of the Green Rock Clan and the Battle Lion Clan. This time, the 4 Universe Knights from the Forbidden Land of Rising Sun didn't just rob the fleet of the Blood Flood Dragon clan. There was a total fleet of close to 500 million battleships, and among the more than 30 undying emperors, the Blood Flood Dragon clan only accounted for 1/3 of them. The other 2/3 were from the Green Rock Clan and the Battle Lion Clan. Even before that huge combined fleet was robbed by the 4 Universe Knights from the Forbidden Land of Rising Sun, the Battle Lion Clan had a half-step Knight Core ancestor who was an undying emperor at level 9, and he was smashed into minced meat in front of everyone in the forbidden land of Rising Sunday. It could be said that this wasn't just a matter of the Blood Flood Dragon clan. The Green Rock clan and the Battle Lion clan were also involved. Now, the 2 universe masters guarding the base camp of the Blood Flood Dragon clan had been dispatched, but there seemed to be an accident. There hadn't been any news back for more than 10 days. Apart from asking for help from the Green Rock clan and the Battle Lion clan, the 4 of them couldn't think of a better way to deal with this. There was a way. Within the base camp of the 2 clans, there were also 2 powerful universe masters guarding it. Other than the 2 Eternity Lords, there was also a powerful Universe Supreme. Judging from the current situation, the Demon Palace Master in the Rising Sun Forbidden Land most likely had the power of a Universe Supreme. After all, 6-headed Blood Dragon was a half-step supreme at the pinnacle of the 9th stage of the Universe Master level. If even he was trapped, it was enough to say. The problem was obvious. If that was really the case, in order to rescue the Crown Prince, they had to ask for help from the 2 Supreme Masters guarding the base camp of the Green Rock clan and the Battle Lion clan. These 2 old fellows were both mid-stage Universe Supreme Masters at level 4, and if they worked together they would definitely be able to solve the problem. However, what disappointed the 4 of them was that the Supreme Masters of the Green Rock clan and the Battle Lion clan were all in seclusion. As for the 4 Universe Masters guarding the base camp of the 2 clans, when they heard that the Crown Prince and the 6-headed Blood Flood Dragon were trapped, they were shocked. Chapter 4676. However, they weren't able to solve the problem immediately. They had to wait for the supreme ancestors of the Green Rock and Battle Lion races to come out of seclusion before they could get a definite answer. Such an outcome made the 4 half-step Universe Lords in the Blood Devouring clan's main camp, who were originally worried about the safety of the Crown Prince, extremely depressed. However, there was nothing they could do. These 4 half-step Eternity Lords were in charge of the Blood Devouring clan's headquarters. They were called Jiao Tian, Jiao Di, Jiao Xian, and Jiao Huang. At this moment, they were gathered in a palace on Jiao Tian's abode star, discussing how to deal with the situation with worried expressions. At this time, an emperor rushed over from outside the planet. He rushed into Jiao Tian's palace and reported, "Ancestors, 6-head Blood Dragon is here." Jiao Tian and the other 3 were startled when they heard this. Then they were overjoyed. They had even overlooked the fact that this undying emperor was calling out the name of a half-step supreme. Their eyes glowed and they smiled. Jiao Tian and the other 3 immediately stood up and laughed heartily. "It's good that you're back. After all this fuss, it was just a false alarm. Since the Crown Prince is back, the forbidden land of the Rising Sun must have been wiped out." "That's right. We've never heard of the Master of the Magic Hall before. How could he be a supreme being?" "Right, where's the Crown Prince now? We have to go and welcome him immediately. Send down the order to celebrate for him for 10 days. After that, the 4 were about to fly up. Seeing this, along with the words of the 4, the Undying who had just rushed into the palace to report was so anxious he was about to cry. With a long face and a sorrowful expression, he said bitterly, "It's not like that, for ancestors. The 6 Blood Flood Dragons are back, but the Crown Prince is nowhere to be seen. The Devil Palace army from the forbidden land of Rising Star is here." Jiao Tian was shocked, and his expression changed. "The army of the Magic Hall from the forbidden land of the Rising Sun is here? Who's leading them?" "It's the 4 first-stage knights in Green Bull from the Space Nomadic Army. This damned Green Bull. He was chased by us in the void for more than 10 years, and has always been very unyielding. I never thought that he would actually join the Demon Palace." At the side, Jiao Di continued the conversation, and halfway through, a sinister expression appeared on his face. "However, the Green Bull is only half a step away from being titled Emperor, and those 4 old fellows are only First-Order Venerables. Even if they come, they will only be sending themselves to their deaths. Return." "It's not like that." This time, the reporting Emperor was truly crying. His voice was choking. "For elders, Green Cow is already an emperor now, and those 4 old fogies, even though they are only at first-level monarch level, but he is still a monarch. Our commander is a Tier 1 supreme. We are definitely not his match." Jiao Xian was shocked and cried out, "What? Oh, Magic Hall Master. He's actually a supreme. It's not like that." This emperor was so anxious that he started foaming at the corner of his mouth. Didn't the Magic Hall Master say it earlier? It's the six-headed blood dragon. He's also one of the 6 commanders of the Magic Hall army, and he's the leader. His strength has already broken through to become a first-stage knight. Hearing this, Zhao Tian and the other 3 trembled. Their faces were filled with disbelief as they exclaimed, "Six-headed blood dragon? Didn't he escape back? How did he become the commander of the Magic Hall army? He actually made a breakthrough in his cultivation and stepped into the supremacy realm. How many days has it been? How can he be so fast? Damn it, the 6-headed blood flood dragon actually betrayed the clan. That devil palace master is truly capable. He subdued the tough green ox and the nomadic army under him, and even the 6-headed blood flood dragon betrayed him. But where's our crown prince? See, the 6-headed blood dragon is already a first-stage knight, but he was still forced to betray us. Doesn't this mean that the mysterious master of the Magic Hall is at least a middle-stage supreme knight? This isn't good. Hong! Hong hong hong! Before the 4 of them could finish their exclamations, the star under their feet suddenly shook violently. The rumbling of thunder shook the heavens and earth. This scene was as if the entire star was about to collapse. The truth was not far from that. Hundreds of black death ray beams with a diameter of 30,000 feet rushed through the atmosphere of the star and smashed into the surface of the star. Although they didn't directly penetrate this life star, they created dozens of cracks that seemed like they were like a huge crack in the sky. A gigantic fissure that was like a natural chasm. Such a scene was practically no different from a true collapse of the heavens and the earth. Hong long long! Roar! Zhao Tianjia, 4 old fellows, come out and die immediately. Almost in the next instant, along with the loud rumbling sound, an incomparably huge blood-red figure smashed the star's atmosphere with a palm and roared as it rushed into the star. It was the bloodline true body that had already appeared. At this moment its size was 10 million feet. It was a 6-headed blood dragon that was 10 feet tall. The cultivation aura that was emitted from its body was that of a first-stage supreme knight. This scene caused Zhao Tian and the others to tremble violently. Their faces were filled with shock and despair that couldn't be dispersed. Old ox, I was relentlessly chased by you in the void for more than 10 years. Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, Sun Shi, and Li Bei followed closely behind the 6-headed blood dragon with their hands behind their backs. Walking side by side with the 4 of them was a huge green bull that was completely different in size. It was at least 10,000 feet tall, but it also walked on its hind legs. Its pair of front hooves were also like Zhao Dong and the others, and it was carried on its back. A low, muffled voice came from its mouth. At that time, I once said that one day, when the big boss of this old bull returns, it will be the time for you to pay the price. Now the big boss has descended and become the master of the Magic Hall. I have always taken revenge. My words back then should come true today. Boom! Hong long long! At the end of its sentence, a cold light flashed in the green bull's eyes, and it suddenly raised its hooves. He did not make a move because he was not a match for the 6-headed blood dragon at all. However, the 6-headed blood dragon suddenly threw out a punch at this moment. In an instant, an incomparably terrifying invisible force blasted out and arrived at the palace below in the blink of an eye. A terrifying explosion sounded, and the entire palace collapsed with a bang, turning into dust that drifted away. Zhao Tian and the others who were originally standing in front of the palace were caught off guard and were hit head-on. Chapter 4677. If you knew this would happen, why did you do what you did? As for the 6-headed blood flood dragon and the flood dragon crown prince, they only arrived recently. However, in the past 10 years or so, the strongest people guarding the blood flood dragon clan's headquarters have always been you 4 old fellows. The fall of the regiment, the fall of countless experts, is related to you all. As Zhao Tian and the other 3 were heavily injured, Green Ox flew out and stomped down with his front hooves. Today it's time for you to pay the price. Pung 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 for explosions rang out. Zhao Tian and the others, who were already heavily injured and on the verge of death, had no strength to fight back at all. They didn't even have the strength to resist, let alone escape. With unwillingness, the bodies of the 4 people were trampled by the front hooves of the green bull. With a boom they exploded and turned into a cloud of blood mist that scattered Xiao. Xiao xiao xiao. The green ox wasn't Yi Xian. He was only an undying emperor, so his horizons weren't that high. Before him was a boundless blood mist formed from the explosion of 4 half-step eternity lords. Not only was it beneficial to his own cultivation, but it could also be given to Yi Xian to refine. A level 26 Universe Lord level pill was for the use of the Beast Army, so he naturally couldn't waste it. As he raised his hooves again, an invisible force spread out. The blood mist formed by the explosion of Zhao Tian and the others was instantly wrapped up. After being compressed, it turned into 4 blood beads that were 3 feet wide and were absorbed by the green ox. At this point, the Blood Devouring clan's main camp had completely fallen. There was no more suspense. Zhao Tian's group of 4 were all half-step Universe Lords, yet they had all been killed. Although there were still a large number of Blood Flood Dragon clansmen in the starfield where the base was located, and there were even quite a few emperors, at least 30 to 40 of them, they were still alive. Couldn't cause any more trouble. Zhao Tian and the rest have all been killed. In the next moment, the green ox rushed out of the star under its feet and arrived in the void of the universe outside the atmosphere. It raised its head and roared. The voice of its divine sense instantly spread out and enveloped the entire star region. Everyone in the Blood Dragon's base camp, listen up. Kill all those who resist. For those who surrender voluntarily, the engine of the warship will be extinguished. All personnel will leave the warship and line up in the void on the right side of the warship, waiting to be incorporated. Anyone who disobeys orders and acts rashly will be killed immediately. Rumble. Rumble. As soon as the voice of his divine sense fell, an earth-shattering rumble could be heard several tens of millions of kilometers to the right in front of them. When he turned around, he saw a group of elite stronghold troops firing at him. This army had a small stronghold with a diameter of 50,000 meters, and a large stronghold with a diameter of 100,000 meters. There was a total of 200,000. Other than that, there wasn't even a single large stronghold with a diameter of 10,000 meters. Obviously, such a luxurious elite fortress army definitely didn't belong to anyone else. It was most likely the private army of Crown Prince Zhao, who had long since fallen. These people were mostly loyal to Crown Prince Zhao and wouldn't surrender. In truth, even if they did, Green Ox wouldn't take them in, as there were too many uncertainties. However, the Flood Dragon Prince's trusted aides in the stronghold could be killed, but the 200,000-plus strongholds of various sizes could not be destroyed just like that. They were all true elites, and the 100,000 large strongholds could be handed over to the 3-clawed Flood Dragon, Long Shantang, and the others to expand the nomadic army. The army's strength. The remaining 100,000-plus small strongholds would definitely be welcomed by the captive army. Even at such a time you still dare to resist? You're all courting death. Moo! Raising his head and roaring, Green Ox shrunk to a size of 300 m and transformed into a beam of green light, shooting towards the space tens of millions of miles away. Don't destroy the strongholds. Seeing this, Long Shantang immediately reminded. The moment he finished, the dozens of emperors and emperors of the nomadic army all rushed into space and shot towards that direction. For the sake of not destroying the 200,000 strongholds, Long Shantang and the 3-clawed dragon and the others gave it their all. The dozens of emperors personally made a move, instantly scaring the blood dragons out of their wits. Even though there were emperors within the 200,000 elite army, there were only about 10 of them. With over 40 emperors surrounding them, it was obvious that they were going to surround them and torture them to death. Xiao without hesitation. The 10 or so titled emperors of the elite stronghold army immediately rushed out of their respective strongholds and scattered, fleeing to the back. They were after all emperors. As long as they didn't have the ships to drag them down, they would have a chance of escaping. Even at such a time you still want to escape? What wishful thinking. In the distance, Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, Sun Shi and Li Bei, who had been standing in space with the 6 blood dragons and hadn't made a move yet, all of a sudden had their expressions sunk. They snorted coldly and made a move. These were 4 powerful knights. In such a short distance of tens of millions of miles, they didn't even need to move their bodies. Their shoulders didn't even shake, they just waved their hands. Pung pung pung. Tens of millions of miles away, a huge explosion resounded. The dozens of emperors who had just rushed out of their own strongholds only made it 20 to 30 million miles before their bodies exploded. They became a bloody mist and dispersed. No matter how small a mosquito's leg is, it's still meat. The bloody mist from an Emperor-level Undying's body can at least be used to make a level 25 night pill. The beast army is huge, the demand isn't small. We can't waste it like this. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The green ox muttered softly in a muffled voice. His figure flashed, and in an instant, he had already arrived in the distant void. With a wave of his hand, the dozen or so majestic blood mists that had spread out were instantly wrapped up by him and compressed into drops of blood that were about 10 feet in size. After the blood droplets were absorbed into his body immediately. Rumble. Rumble. On this side, there was no more suspense for the 200,000 elite strongholds of the Crown Prince. Basically, all of them had been killed, leaving only the strongholds as spoils of war. As for the other regions, there were still rumbling sounds coming from them. Within the huge Blood Dragon's base star field, although many battleships had already closed their kinetic energy cabins, the people inside gave up on the battle and walked out of the battleships, lining up in space. They were waiting to be absorbed, but similarly, there were some battleships and even small army-level units that were still resisting stubbornly. Chapter 4678. Within a day, the battle ended, and the Blood Flood Dragon clan's base camp fell completely. In this battle, countless Blood Flood Dragon clan warriors were killed, and a shocking number of battleships were destroyed. Not only the Blood Flood Dragon clan, but even the 3 great legions of the Magic Hall suffered losses. However, the losses were negligible. Yes, after the battle ended, as far as the eye could see, the vast starfield occupied by the Blood Flood Dragon clan's base camp was bleak. Some of the destroyed battleships were still burning, and the air was filled with a pungent smell of blood and burnt flesh. Although the battle only lasted for a day, the post-battle inventory clearly took more time. Although more than 60% of the Blood Flood Dragon clan warriors chose to stubbornly resist, close to 40% of them chose to abandon the battle and surrender. Of course, not all of the 40% who abandoned the battle survived. This kind of large-scale interstellar battle that involved the entire starfield was far too chaotic. Many prisoners of war were accidentally injured by the cannons of both sides during the chaotic battle, and they were unwilling to die just like that. After spending an entire 3 days, the post-battle inventory was finally completed. In this battle, more than 100 million battleships were captured, and more than 1 billion Blood Flood Dragon clan warriors were captured. Among them, there were close to 100 Undying Emperors and over 20 Undying Emperors. After the 3 great legions returned victorious, these forces would be incorporated into the captive legion that hadn't set off yet. However, right now, these 100 million Blood Flood Dragon clan battleships would follow behind the 3 great legions of the Magic Hall and fight in the second battle of this expedition. Their first target was the Green Rock clan's base camp. Set off! Hong Long Long. Under Green Ox's command, a shocking rumble sounded in the air. The 3 great legions of the Magic Hall, the Ferocious Beasts, the Remnant Survivors, and the Nomads, along with the 100 million-plus battleships of the captive legion of the Blood Flood Dragon clan, set off toward the distant space. In the distant space, some battleships, ferocious beasts, and battleships could be faintly seen. They didn't dare to get too close and stayed in an extremely distant area, peeping in this direction. These were clearly scouts from the other forces and clans that had entered this void fragment of the untainted world from the 3 main planes of the starry skies. There were also some that came from the Forbidden Lands and the remnant star areas that still existed in the void of the untainted land. The commotion caused by the battle in the Blood Wyrm clan's headquarters was simply too shocking. The flames of war spread throughout the vast star region, and naturally attracted endless attention. In fact, long before the arrival of the 3 legions of the Magic Hall, a large number of small battleships, ferocious beasts, and scouts from the remnant starfield had been paying close attention to this place. The time could even be traced back to more than 10 days ago. At that time, Zhao Dong, Qiannan, Sun Shi, and Li Bei had walked out of the forbidden area of Sunrise and captured the Bloodworm, Azure Rock, and Warlion clans as well as the Starry Sky Nomad army. This matter had already alarmed countless powers. After that, the Crown Prince of the Blood Flood Dragon clan set off in anger. Although there were only 10,000 large fortresses in the elite army, it was extremely ostentatious and attracted the attention of all parties. Even so, the great powers in the current era, as well as the upper echelons of the ferocious beast forbidden area and the remnant star region, still did not expect that the power of the magic hall would be so amazing. Not only did it kill the crown prince of the Flood Dragon clan, but it also subdued him. With the help of the six-headed blood dragon and the green ox, even the star region where the Blood Wyrm clan was based was completely destroyed by them in a short period of one day. At that moment, as the three armies of the Magic Hall led the captive Blood Wyrm army towards the Cyan Rainbow Galaxy, where the headquarters of the Cyan Rock clan was located, everything that happened there rapidly spread into the surroundings with a terrifying speed. Go! In an instant, cries of alarm that were filled with endless shock sounded out from all over the void of the great desolate world. What happened? Crown Prince Flooddragon has only been in the forbidden land of Rising Dawn for a little more than 10 days. Yet a mid-universe lord was killed just like that. What is he? The six-headed Blood Dragon clan was a half-step supreme being who was a universe master at the 9th stage of perfection. But wasn't he still subdued by the master of the Magic Hall? It seems that the mysterious master of the Magic Hall is at least a mid-stage supreme being. What's even more surprising is that the master of the Magic Hall is actually the big boss behind the scenes that the Green Ox has been talking about. This person's identity is too mysterious. The Space Nomadic Army and the Forbidden Land of Rising Dawn are actually secretly controlled by him, but I've never heard of this person before. Where did such a person come from? It's only been a month, and such a shocking change happened. The headquarters of the Blood Wyrm clan was destroyed, and 4 powerful half-step supreme beings fell. This is simply unprecedented. Unfortunately, the armies of the Magic Hall were too confident. After destroying the headquarters of the Blood Wyrm clan, they actually immediately went to attack the headquarters of the Cyan Rainbow Galaxy of the Cyan Rock clan. This is simply asking for humiliation. Indeed, the headquarters of the Cyan Rock clan and the Battle Lion clan are not comparable to the Blood Wyrm clan. These two clans already have a powerful mid-stage supreme being in this void space. Even the master of the Magic Hall only has a cultivation level around that of a mid-stage supreme being. If he personally went to the Cyan Rainbow Galaxy, there would still be hope of a triumphant return. Now that the six-headed Blood Dragon clan is leading the army, the result of this battle is already obvious. The six-headed Blood Dragon clan has just become a universe supreme, and he's only at the first level of this realm. Yet he dares to lead an army to the Cyan Rainbow Forbidden Land where a mid-stage supreme being is guarding. I really don't know where he gets his confidence from. As the waves of exclamations resounded in the void space of this fragment of the ancient universe, various large clans and powers, as well as the various forbidden lands of ferocious beasts and the remnant star fields, continued to send out troops of different sizes and camps. They gathered from all directions and rushed toward the headquarters of the Cyan Rainbow Galaxy of the Cyan Rock clan. The lineup was extremely shocking, and there was even going to be an earth-shattering battle at the level of universe supreme beings. In this grand space, even if one could only watch from afar, as long as one could seize this opportunity, no one would be willing to miss it. 10 days later, the 3 armies of the Magic Hall and the Blood Wyrm captive army arrived at the Cyan Rainbow Galaxy and formed a formation in the void space 20 million miles away from the galaxy. Hung Long Long. Howl! Cyan Rock clan. All the old fogies at the level of universe knights and above. Come out now and accept your death. With a loud rumble, Green Ox, the 6-headed Blood Dragon clan, Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, Sun Shi, and Li Bei rushed out of their respective flagship fortresses and came to the forefront. The Green Ox walked on its hind legs with a pair of front hooves behind its back. Its expression was extraordinary and revealed disdain. From its mouth, a low and muffled voice came out. Azure Rock clan, this old ox was chased down by you in the void for 10 years without mercy. My remaining years. Chapter 4679. Moo. After today's battle, the Green Rainbow Starfield is destined to be completely destroyed, just like the headquarters of the Blood Dragon clan. However, I will only kill the culprit today. In the void of the universe, Green Ox raised his head and roared. The voice of his divine sense instantly spread out and swept toward the Qinghong Galaxy in front of him. Everyone in the Qinghong Galaxy, listen up. If you are below the level of Venerable, as long as you surrender, you will not be implicated. Those who refuse to realize their mistakes and resist stubbornly will be killed without mercy. Those who give up and surrender turn off the engine of the battleship. All personnel will leave the battleship and form an array in the void space on the right side of the battleship, waiting to be recruited. Those who refuse to listen to the order and act rashly will be killed immediately. Hong! Hong! Long! Long! As soon as the voice of his divine sense fell, an earth-shattering rumble came from the Cyan Rainbow Star region 20 million kilometers away. How dare a mere titled emperor behave so atrociously in the green rainbow star field where I am guarding? Green Bull, have you eaten the heart of a bear or the heart of a leopard? Along with the roar, a huge figure quickly appeared in the depths of the green rainbow star field. A moment ago it was still hundreds of millions of miles away, but in the blink of an eye, it was already at the edge of the star field. It was a green rock. At this time it had already revealed its bloodline true body. Its wingspan was 30 million feet, and with a flap of its wings it was tens of millions of miles away. Its speed was absolutely astonishing. Even great beings of the other races of the same level were no match for it. As for his cultivation level, he had already reached the fourth order universe supremacy. Although he had just stepped into the middle stage of this realm, this level of cultivation was an existence that was absolutely impossible to surpass for the three great armies of the Demon Palace who were courting death by provoking them. Among the three great legions of the Magic Hall, the strongest one, the six-headed Blood Dragon, was only at the first level of Universe Supreme and had just entered the initial stage of this level. If they were to fight this green rock head-on, they would most likely be killed within a few breaths of time. There was no suspense at all. This was obvious to everyone. Hence, at this moment as this green rock appeared, a large number of great beings and battleships of the green rock race came rumbling from behind and sailed toward the edge of the star field. The scouts of various forces, ferocious beasts, and survivors who were watching from a distance in the void in the distance immediately sighed. Some of them could vaguely hear through their divine senses. Green Rock Supreme has never shown himself before, and the outside world has only heard rumors of his cultivation level. Today I see that he has indeed reached the fourth level of the Universe Supreme. That's a powerful middle-stage Supreme being. The Master of the Magic Hall is truly muddle-headed. I'm afraid that the three legions of the Magic Hall will be completely wiped out in today's battle. What do you mean by afraid? This is clearly a done deal, and there's no suspense at all. Perhaps in a fit of rage, the Azure Rock Sovereign and the Battle Lion Clan's Battle Lion Sovereign would charge into the forbidden land of Rising Sun and kill the Master of the Magic Hall in one fell swoop. Indeed, there's such a possibility. Previously, the Green Rock Race and the Battle Lion Clan didn't make any moves only because the Supreme Ancestor in their base camp was still in seclusion. But now the Green Rock Sovereign of the Green Rock Race has already come out of seclusion. If the Battle Lion Clan's Battle Lion Sovereign is the same, the two of them will definitely join forces and charge into the forbidden land of Rising Sun. Is a fourth-level Universe Supreme very powerful? As the discussions in the distant void sounded faintly, Green Ox, Six-Headed Blood Dragon, Zhao Dong and Qian Nan, who were at the forefront of the three legions of the Magic Hall, the strongest of the six-headed Blood Dragon, dashed forward. At this moment, his voice rang out, spreading close to 10 billion miles of void space and was heard by all the great beings who were hibernating in the distance. The aura emanating from your body is somewhat unstable. This is clearly a sign that you've just made a breakthrough. And it seems that you're in a hurry to come out of seclusion. Green Rock, you've just forcefully broken through, and it's likely that you've already caused a backlash in your body. Now, instead of going into seclusion to consolidate your realm and eliminate the hidden dangers, you actually dare to fight with me. In my opinion, in your current state, as long as the power in your body is slightly agitated, the backlash will most likely come immediately. At that time, your cultivation will plummet, and you won't be able to avoid it. At this point, Six-Headed Blood Dragon curled his lips and waved his right claw. With a look of disdain, he continued, "Scram back into seclusion. If you're defeated by me in this state, it'll be an unfair victory. It'll be a disgrace." Screech. Bullsh *T. Just as Six-Headed Blood Dragon finished speaking, an earth-shattering roar came from the edge of the Cyan Rainbow Star field ahead. Green Rock Sovereign had indeed just made a breakthrough. Previously, it was rumored that he had been a fourth-level Supreme for a long time. In fact, it was slightly exaggerated. His true cultivation was only at third-level Universe Supreme, which was the peak of the initial stage of this realm. The reason why he had gone into seclusion previously was to make a breakthrough. For this he had been preparing for many years. Now, although he had just come out of seclusion, he had successfully broken through to 4th level Universe Supreme. He was a genuine middle-level Supreme, and his cultivation base had long been consolidated. It was not like what Six-Headed Blood Dragon had said, that his realm was unstable. This guy was simply slandering him. A mere 1st level Supreme dared to provoke and ridicule him like this. This made Green Rock's Sovereign, who was a 4th level Supreme being, fly into a rage screech. You damned blood-flood dragon. This Sovereign must tear apart your bones and skin you alive today to vent the hatred in my heart. Green Rock's Sovereign raised his head and roared again. His gigantic body suddenly turned into a beam of green light, and shot out from the edge of the cyan rainbow forbidden land in front of him. Gotcha. Gotcha. However, at this moment, a crisp cracking sound suddenly came from his gigantic body without any warning. It was incomparably clear. Even the scouts from the various races and forces who were watching from afar in the void hundreds of millions of miles away heard it. The great beings also heard it clearly. This was clearly the sound of bones shattering. Pooh! Just as everyone was shocked and uncertain, Green Rock Sovereign's figure, which was originally shooting over at an extremely fast speed, came to an abrupt halt in the void at this moment. He opened his mouth and spat out an arrow of blood. It was like a heavy rain sprinkling down in the void. His huge wings, which were originally stretched out, suddenly drooped down weakly as the blood arrow spurted out. It was as if his wings had been broken. In the blink of an eye, Green Rock's Sovereign fell into a dispirited state. The cultivation aura emanating from his body had dropped by a few levels, and he had already fallen to the 1st level Universe Supreme level. He was even weaker than Six-Headed Blood Dragon. See, I was right, wasn't I? In your current state, your realm is unstable. If you force yourself to attack, even your wings will be broken. Why bother? Chapter 4680. Shio. In the void, an incomparably sharp sound pierced through the air. The 6-headed blood dragon, who had made up his mind, turned into a ray of bloody light and shot forward. In the blink of an eye, he had already arrived in front of Yi Xian. His body came to an abrupt halt, and his state instantly weakened. His cultivation level dropped to 1st Supreme. The 2nd stage Azure Rock Prime was approaching. There was naturally a reason for such an unexpected turn of events. All of this was done secretly by Yi Xian. The current Yi Xian, in his 9th transformation state, was already at the 2nd stage of the primordial sovereign realm, even if he ignored the fact that the boundless blood and chi energy within his enormous body had increased his cultivation by 10%. It was naturally not difficult to injure a Universe Supreme in secret. It was no exaggeration to say that it was no more difficult than stretching out a finger and crushing an ant to death. In fact, Yi Xian's original body was not here at all. He was still in the magic hall of the Rising Sun Forbidden Zone's cavern star. Even though he was so far away in the starry sky, Yi Xian could easily do all this. Of course, if there was a powerful primordial supreme here, even a late-stage primordial supreme would be able to more or less see something fishy. Unfortunately, the strongest existence in this star field was only the Azure Rock Sovereign. Even he himself did not understand why he had suddenly lost his wings and his cultivation had plummeted. As for the others, they naturally did not understand. It was impossible for them to see any clues. However, the 6-headed blood dragon, Green Ox, Xiaodong, Qiannan, Sun Shi, and Li Bei were naturally well aware of it, but they would not point out the truth. The 6-headed blood dragon had deliberately slandered Azure Rock Prime because he had just broken through, and his cultivation level was not stable. In fact, he had a motive. Logically speaking, he was only a first-order supreme. Obviously, it was impossible for him to be Azure Rock Prime's opponent. He was not the only one who knew this. The Demon Master was also well aware of this. Therefore, the 6-headed blood dragon was sure that Yi Xian would definitely make a move, and he would do it secretly. The reason he said such words earlier was to give Yi Xian a reason to secretly make a move. Otherwise, if the old lion in the War Lion race's base camp, who was also at the middle stage of the Universe Sovereign Realm, realized that something was amiss, he would have immediately fled far away. Even if he went to the War Lion race's base camp, the final result would only be pouncing. Empty air. Hiss. Rumble. Pooh. At this moment, as the 6-headed blood serpent shot over, it arrived before the Azure Rock Sovereign in the blink of an eye. A cold light flashed through its eyes. Without any hesitation, it extended its claws and swiped viciously. The extremely clear sound of fabric tearing rang out. At this moment, the Azure Rock Sovereign was still in a state of extreme shock and shock. He did not understand why his wings had suddenly snapped under an invisible but terrifying force. The confusion and fear in his heart made his reaction extremely slow. Coupled with the fact that his cultivation level had plummeted, he was already weaker than the six-headed blood dragon. Therefore, Sovereign Azure Rock did not have the time to react to the sudden approach of the six-headed blood Devouring, as if it was a sneak attack. His dangling left wing was directly torn off by the six-headed blood flood dragon's claws, and it was thrown into the universe's void on the right. The power of this claw was too strong. After all, the six-headed blood flood dragon had been accumulating its power to begin with. After losing an entire left wing, the Azure Rock Sovereign's body shook violently. Not only did the blood from his broken wing spray into the sky, he even opened his mouth and spat out another arrow of blood. This attack made his already serious injuries even worse. When this arrow of blood was spat out from his mouth like a rainstorm, the cultivation aura emitted from the Azure Rock Sovereign's body plummeted once again. In less than half a breath, it had already fallen. Between the 9th stage pinnacle of the Universe Master level and the 1st stage Universe Supreme level, he could fall to the Supreme level at any time. All of this took a long time to describe, but in fact it all happened in a breath's time. Not only was Azure Rock Prime unable to react, but the great beings from the various races and powers who were watching from afar in the void hundreds of millions of miles away were all in the same state. From this moment on, the entire vast and boundless void fell into a dead silence. Everywhere, all the great beings in the starry sky subconsciously gasped, and their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. After a full 2 seconds, cries of astonishment came from all directions like a tidal wave, covering the sky and covering the earth. What? Azure Rock Prime is going to fall to the next level? How is this possible? Just a while ago, he was an extremely powerful middle stage supreme, and now he is going to fall to the level of a universe master? This is unbelievable. It's like a dream. It seems that what six-headed blood dragon said was right. Azure Rock Prime did just break through and come out of seclusion. The reason why there was no movement from Green Rainbow Forbidden Land was that he was still in seclusion to break through. He was too impatient and overconfident. He just broke through and didn't even have a solid foundation for his level, but he immediately went out to meet the enemy. And the enemy is a Universe Supreme who is at the same level as him. There is almost no suspense about the result. Maybe he just wanted to scare six-headed blood dragon. But in the end he miscalculated and was seen through by the enemy. This guy is also a troublemaker. He is not to be trifled with. He didn't care whether Azure Rock Prime did it on purpose or not. He actually dashed forward. In the end, six-headed blood dragon made the right bet. This battle has just begun, and there is already such a bloody scene. The final result is needless to say. It is really shocking. Green Rainbow Star Zone, the headquarters of the Green Rock race, is going to be finished. I didn't expect such a result in the end. Both six-headed blood dragon and the mysterious master of Magic Hall are too lucky. They even encountered such an almost impossible accident. Screech! Damn you, blood dragon, you must be the one behind this. Here, before the waves of exclamations and sighs from the void space in the distance died down, Azure Rock Prime's earth-shattering screech came from the edge of Green Rainbow Star Zone in front of him again. At this very moment, his heart was on the verge of collapse, but his mind was extremely clear. He knew that he had been tricked. What shocked him even more was that he was about to fall from a great realm. But he didn't even know the identity of the existence that had been lurking in the dark and plotting against him. He didn't know. This was simply too terrifying, and it made Azure Rock Prime's godly soul tremble. As the screech that was full of unwillingness and anger rang out, he who only had one wing left didn't move forward. Instead, he retreated. His huge body turned into a beam of green light and retreated toward Green Rainbow Star Zone at an extremely fast speed. Chapter 4681. I told you to leave just now, but you didn't. Now that things have come to this, you're retreating. Who do you think I am? Seeing that Green Rock Prime was about to escape, the six-headed blood dragon's eyes glinted coldly. He dashed forward and chased after Green Rock Prime. Thong long long. Pooh! In the blink of an eye, the six-headed blood dragon shot forward and reached Green Rock Prime's side in half a breath's time. With a flash of coldness in his eyes, he extended his claws again without hesitation and swiped at Green Rock Prime, who was escaping at high speed. Another clear sound rang out. At this moment, Autarch Azure Rock's mind was still shrouded in confusion and fear. He had been in a hurry to flee, so his reaction was slow. Coupled with the fact that his current cultivation base had fallen to the level of a half-step autarch, he still didn't have time to react to the sudden attack from the six-headed blood dragon. This time, the six-headed blood dragon aimed at his wings, which were dangling weakly as well. When the six-headed blood dragon swiped at them with its claws, Qi-Gen tore them off in the blink of an eye and threw them into the distant void of the universe. The power of this swipe was stronger than the previous one. The six-headed blood dragon was full of satisfaction, and his combat power soared. On the other hand, Azure Rock Sovereign had already lost an entire left wing. Now that he was caught off guard, his right wing was torn apart again. His body trembled violently as blood sprayed out from his broken wing. His expression changed drastically as he opened his mouth and spat out another mouthful of blood. His injuries were already extremely severe to begin with, and now they had clearly worsened. When he spat out this arrow of blood, the aura of cultivation that radiated from Prime Azure Rock's body finally dropped by an entire realm. A few moments ago, he was still a powerful middle-stage supreme, but now he had fallen to the level of a ninth-stage complete universe master. Even if he struggled, there was no chance for him to survive. He was definitely no match for the six-headed blood dragon at its peak state. There was no suspense in what happened next. In the void space, an earth-shattering battle broke out, but the battle was completely one-sided. The six-headed blood dragon was completely abusing his opponent. A first-stage universe supreme being was abusing a fourth-stage intermediate supreme being. Screech! Bang! In the end, the Azure Rock Prime raised his head and let out an extremely shrill roar. It was filled with endless anger and reluctance. Afterwards, his entire body was smashed to a pulp by a single punch from the six-headed blood serpent. He turned into a bloody mist that dispersed into the air. He was indeed unwilling to accept this. His fault today was a little unclear. If the twin G hadn't been broken when he flapped his wings and rushed out earlier, causing his cultivation level to plummet to level 1 Universe Supreme, how could he have been defeated by the six-headed blood dragon with his original cultivation level of level 4 Intermediate Universe Supreme? This was an incomparably deep and monstrous resentment. Sovereign Azure Rock was unable to figure out what had gone wrong before his death. Just who was behind all of this? Bang bang. Xiao! After ending all of this, the six-headed blood dragon waved his hand. The two huge wings of the Green Rock Supreme that he had torn off in the distant void instantly shot over and exploded, turning into a bloody mist. Immediately after, along with the majestic bloody mist that had exploded from Sovereign Azure Rock's body, it was swept up by the six-headed blood dragon with a wave of his hand and compressed into a blood bead that was about 3 feet in radius. After all, this was the majestic bloody mist that had been formed after the body of a Universe Supreme exploded. Naturally, it couldn't be wasted so easily. Run! Run! Everything that had happened before had taken a long time to describe, but in fact, from the moment Sovereign Azure Rock appeared and rushed out from the depths of the Cyan Rainbow Star Field to the moment when his body exploded and turned into a bloody mist that was taken away by the six-headed blood dragon, from the beginning to the end, it had only been 10 breaths. Within a short span of 10 breaths, a powerful mid-fourth order supreme being was completely annihilated, and the one who killed him was merely a first-order universe supreme being. All of this was like a dream. Countless great beings of the Green Rock race in the Cyan Rainbow Star Field couldn't come back to their senses at all. All of them were petrified and in a daze. At this moment, the majestic bloody mist formed by the explosion of Sovereign Azure Rock's body had been compressed into a blood bead and then taken away by the six-headed blood dragon. Only then did they come back to their senses. The entire Cyan Rainbow Star Field in front of them trembled completely at this moment. The expressions of countless great beings of the Green Rock race changed drastically. They cried out involuntarily and scattered in all directions. Moo! The 3 major armies and the captive army of the Blood Dragon race. All of you, move out and stop all the battleships and great beings of the Green Rock race. At this moment, Green Ox was full of pride. He raised his head in mood again. The voice of his spirit consciousness reverberated throughout the vast void space of the Cyan Rainbow Star Field. Everyone in the Cyan Rainbow Star Field, listen up. Those with cultivation bases below universe supremacy will not be implicated as long as they surrender. If they refuse to realize their mistakes and resist stubbornly, kill them all. Those who voluntarily give up and surrender, turn off the engine of the battleship. All personnel will leave the battleship and form an array in the void space on the right side of the battleship. Wait to be taken in. Those who don't listen to orders and act rashly will be killed immediately. Hong! Rumble. As soon as his voice fell, the three major armies and the captive army of the Blood Dragon race behind him, as well as countless experts, battleships, all rushed out and entered the Cyan Rainbow Star Field. The great battle began in an instant. The vast void of the universe within a radius of tens of billions of kilometers had turned into a battlefield of iron and blood. Earth-shattering rumbling sounds had not stopped since this moment. In the distant void, the scouts from the various clans and forces were all petrified. After a long time, the battle in the Cyan Rainbow Star Field gradually intensified. Only then did one sigh after another resound in the surrounding void of the universe. It continued. This is truly too surprising. I didn't expect the final result of this battle to be like this. The powerful Green Rock race's base camp was completely destroyed in the blink of an eye, just like the Blood Dragon race. This is simply, everything is like a dream. If there are no accidents with the fall of the Green Rock Star Field, the next target of the Magic Hall's army will most likely be the Forbidden Land of Tyrannical Blood, where the base camp of the Battle Lion race is located. Their self-confidence has already swelled to the extreme, so it's naturally impossible for them to stop here. If they do, they will undoubtedly be laughed at by the various clans and forces. If that's really the case, the six-headed Blood Dragon and the Green Ox will undoubtedly be digging their own graves. Green Rock Supreme was just unlucky. He had just made a breakthrough, and before he could stabilize his realm, he encountered the three major armies of the Magic Hall. The problem is that he is unwilling to die. But the Battle Lion Supreme guarding the Forbidden Land of Tyrannical Blood is not the same. He has already shown his face in the void space of this fragment of the universe, and his strength has already stabilized at the 4th level of the Universe Supreme, and there is still a certain distance between him and the 5th level of the Universe Supreme. Chapter 4682. Rumble. Rumble. In the Cyan Rainbow Starfield ahead, the earth-shaking rumbles lasted for an entire day before the battle finally ended. However, the post-battle counting obviously took a lot more time. In this battle, there were still many warriors from the Cyan Rock race that chose to stubbornly resist. However, there were also many who chose to give up and surrender. Of course, it was impossible for all of these deserters to survive. This interstellar war affected the entire star field. It was too chaotic. Many prisoners of war were accidentally injured by the cannons of both sides during the chaotic battle. They were unwilling to die. The following post-battle counting took a few days. The final statistics were very pleasing. There were close to 200 million captured battleships and over 1 billion Blood WYRM warriors. Among them, there were over 100 emperors and over 30 emperors. After the 3 legions returned victorious, these forces would be incorporated into the captive legions that had yet to be deployed, along with the Blood Flood Dragon clan captives. Set off. Rumble. After everything was settled, the Green Ox gave the order, and an earth-shattering roar resounded in the void. The 3 armies of the Magic Hall, the Ferocious Beasts, the Survivors and the Nomads, along with the Blood WRM and the Green Rock race's army of close to 300 million battleships, set off towards the distant space. The third target was the Battle Lion race's main camp, the Tyrant Blood Forbidden Ground. In the distant space, the scout battleships, ferocious beasts and battleships from the various races and powers could still be faintly seen. They had never left, but in these few days they didn't dare to get too close. They stayed in an extremely distant region and looked over. They watched from afar. They weren't sure if the 3 armies of the Magic Hall would head towards the Tyrant Blood Forbidden Ground. Hence, they had to stay and wait for the situation to change. At this moment, the captive army of the 3 armies set off from the Cyan Rainbow Starfield and headed towards the Tyrant Blood Forbidden Ground under the Green Bull's order. The distant scout battleships and ferocious beasts of the various powers, as well as the warriors on the battleships, all exclaimed in shock. Exclamations of surprise followed closely behind, trailing behind from a distance at the same time. Everything that happened here spread to other areas of the void of the fragment of untainted land at an astounding speed. The entire vast and boundless void was boiling. The gazes of countless experts converged on them. 7 days later, the 3 legions of the Magic Hall and the Captive Legion made up of the captives from the Blood Flood Dragon clan and the Green Rock clan finally arrived at the edge of the Blood Tyrant Forbidden Land. They slowly stopped in the void outside the Blood Tyrant Forbidden Land from 100 million kilometers away. At the edge of the Forbidden Land of tyrannical blood ahead, a huge fleet of battleships could be seen. There were not many battleships, far less than the Blood Devouring clan and Cyan Rock clan's headquarters that had already been destroyed. At a glance, the War Lion clan's army, which was already in formation, only had about 200 million battleships in total. However, they were all large and small fortresses and strongholds, belonging to the elite army. If nothing unexpected happened, the Tyrant Blood Forbidden Land behind them was most likely empty. All the battleships in the War Lion race's base camp had already been set off. This was clearly the rhythm of a decisive battle. Swish! Swish, swish, swish! As the huge fleet of battleships stopped, a few faint sounds of breaking through the void could be heard very quickly. Under the gazes of tens of thousands of people, the 6-headed Blood Devouring, Green Ox, Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, Sun Shi, and Li Bei rushed out from their respective flagship strongholds and arrived in front of the Magic Hall's army. Their expressions were disdainful as they looked at the Tyrant Blood Forbidden Land in front of them. Where's that old mad lion? Hurry up and come out to die. Although Green Ox's cultivation was the weakest, he was still the commander of this Magic Hall's army. After all, he was an old man by Yi Xian's side. Zhao Dong and the other 3, as well as the 6-headed Blood Devouring, had no choice but to accept this point. Roar! Swish! Just as he finished speaking, a shocking roar resounded from the depths of the Tyrant Blood Forbidden Land in front of them, and a figure swept out. It was actually a mighty lion whose entire body was as red as blood. The cultivation aura emitted from its body was clearly that of a 4th-level Universe Supreme, which was the middle stage of this realm. It was incomparably powerful. However, his body was only around 10 feet tall. It did not seem to match his cultivation at all. A mere 1st-level titled emperor actually dares to assume the majesty of a tiger. You're simply courting death. This mighty lion whose entire body was as red as blood was the strongest being in charge of the Battle Lion clan's main camp, Mad Lion Supreme. At this moment, he also glanced at Green Ox, 6-headed Blood Devouring, and the others with disdain, and a sinister voice was instantly transmitted. In today's battle, my Battle Lion clan won't move a single soldier or ship. Just this body alone is enough to kill all of you. Kill all of you here. As soon as these words were spoken, private discussions instantly broke out in the void. Everyone was moved, but the expressions on their faces clearly revealed disbelief. After all, the 3 armies of the Magic Hall and the captives of the Blood Devouring and Green Rock clans were too large. Even if they weren't a match for Mad Lion Supreme, if he wanted to rely on his own strength to stop the entire Magic Hall's army, the Battle Lion clan behind him would be able to fight against him. For an army to not move a single soldier or ship, this was somewhat inconceivable. However, in reality, Mad Lion Supreme's words weren't an exaggeration. Even though he only had the strength of a 4th-level Universe Supreme, in reality, he alone was absolutely enough to completely annihilate the entire Magic Hall's army. This was because he could still use the Bloodline ability of the Mad Lion, and he could already use it up to the 7th transformation. With every transformation, his strength would increase by 1 small level. 7 transformations, his body would continuously expand by 10 times 7 times. Every time his body expanded, his strength would also increase by 7 small levels. Currently, he was a 4th-level Universe Supreme, but when he reached the 7th transformation, his strength would reach the level of a 2nd-level Primordial Great Being. Level. That was the legendary Great Being of the Primordial Great Being, who was strong enough to sweep through the void fragment of this universe. This was also the reason why the scale of the battleship army in the main camp of the Battle Lion clan was so inconspicuous. It was because they didn't need to rely on the power of the battleship army to stand firmly in this void without falling. 9 Mad Lion Transformations. First transformation. At this moment, Mad Lion Supreme raised his head and let out a shocking roar. Following that roar, in the next instant, his body, which was only 30 meters tall, suddenly increased in size. An indescribable bloodline energy immediately surged within his body, converging into a similar wave of energy. A tidal wave of energy. In the blink of an eye, the energy and blood within Mad Lion Supreme's body increased tremendously, and his body, which was only 30 meters tall, directly soared to a height of 300 meters. His strength also increased by 1 level, reaching the 5th level Universe Supreme. 9 Mad Lion Transformations. Second transformation. But it wasn't over yet. Following that, a second roar rang out. This time, the energy and blood within Mad Lion Supreme's body surged once more, and the extent of it surpassed the first transformation. Chapter 4683. Roar. 9 Changes of the Mad Lion. Third change. Before anyone could react, Mad Lion Supreme raised his head and roared again. At this moment, as the third transformation was activated, the surging chi and blood in his body surged again. It was like a roaring river, directly causing his body to expand rapidly like a balloon. From the original height of 3,000 feet, it quickly grew to 2,000 feet, 3,000 feet, until the final height of 30,000 feet. As for the cultivation aura in his body, it soared to the 7th level of the Universe Supreme. In less than 3 breaths' time, Supreme Wild Lion let out 3 roars and activated the bloodline ability of the Wild Lion. Even though he had only activated the bloodline ability to the 3rd transformation, his body instantly grew to over 10,000 zhang tall. His cultivation also increased by 3 minor ranks, from the previous intermediate level of the 4th level to the current advanced level of the 7th level. All of this was too shocking, and it happened too quickly. Everyone was caught off guard, and all of them opened their mouths wide, completely dumbfounded. For a moment they even forgot to cry out in alarm. However, all of this was clearly far from the end. This Wild Lion Sovereign was an ancestor of the War Lion race, and the bloodline ability of the 9 Berserk Lion transformations. Even if he had yet to comprehend the 9th transformation to perfection, it was impossible for him to just stop at the 9th level. 3 changes. 9 changes of the Mad Lion. 4th change. In an instant, another roar was heard, and the sound shook the surroundings. The 30,000-foot-tall Mad Lion Supreme raised his head and roared, and this corner of the void trembled slightly. Then his bloodline true body, which was already 10,000 feet tall, expanded 10 times again like a balloon, reaching a terrifying height of 100,000 feet in an instant. As for the cultivation aura in his body, it soared to the 8th level of the Universe Supreme. It still wasn't over. Following that, a series of roars were heard, and the entire void trembled. 9 changes of the Mad Lion. 5th change. 9 changes of the Mad Lion. 6th change. 9 changes of the Mad Lion. 7th change. Roar. Roar. In the blink of an eye, as these furious roars rang out, the Wild Lion Supremacy's body began to swell. In just 3 breaths of time, he had grown from 100,000 zhang in size to 100 million zhang in size. 100 million feet, which was equivalent to 600,000 miles, was like a small star, incomparably terrifying. As for the cultivation aura emanating from his body, it had increased by another 3 small levels. Previously it was at the 8th level of the Universe Supreme level. Now it had reached the 2nd level of the Primordial Great Power. This was the legendary Primordial Age Supreme Being. Furthermore, this was not the first time he had entered this realm. Instead, he had already stabilized himself in the initial stage of the Supreme Being and had reached the 2nd stage of this realm. Not to mention crushing the Magic Hall Legion in front of them, to exaggerate, if the other mighty figures or desolate supremacies did not appear. Just the Wild Lion Supreme alone was enough to sweep through the void fragment of the Chaos world. All of this happened too quickly, and it was too shocking. As the person involved, Wild Lion Supreme felt extremely agitated. Although this wasn't the first time he had experienced this, he still couldn't calm down. It was even more so for the scouts from the various clans and forces who were watching from afar. At this moment, their expressions had changed drastically, and even their bodies were trembling uncontrollably. 10 breaths ago, Wild Lion Supreme Being's cultivation level was merely at the 4th level of the Universe Supreme level. Then, a few breaths ago, when he activated the bloodline in his body and executed the third transformation of the 9 changes of the Wild Lion Supreme Being, his cultivation level soared to the 8th level of the advanced stage of the 8th level of the Universe Supreme level. Then, without waiting for everyone to react, he roared 3 more times. In just a few breaths' time, as the 7th transformation of the Wild Lion Supreme Being was executed, his cultivation level soared by another 3 levels, and he had crossed a large realm and directly charged to the 2nd level of the Universe Supreme level. Today, he was at the 2nd level of the primordial great power. All of this was simply unimaginable, and the scouts from the various clans and forces in the distance were dumbfounded. Those beings from the 3 main starry skies of the current era were one thing. Although they had never seen anyone execute the 7th transformation of the 9 changes of the Wild Lion Supreme Being with their own eyes, and it was based on their own cultivation level, they were originally at the level of the Universe Supreme level. Under the circumstances of the Universe Supreme level. However, they were, after all, from the 3 main starry skies of the current era, and they had more or less heard of such a heaven-defying bloodline ability of the Warrior Lion Supreme Being of the 2nd universe. However, the scouts of the indigenous fierce beasts and remnant forces, who originally belonged to the void fragment of the primitive world, had never heard of this before. Now that they suddenly saw it, their hearts had already trembled, and their entire minds were buzzing. Rang. After a large number of gasps of cold air, a wave of exclamations instantly filled the air. What? A 2nd level of the primordial great power? This is the rhythm of sweeping through this space? No wonder the Warrior Lion Supreme Being of the 2nd universe sent so few battleships to this fragment of the universe. All of them are elites, and they are simply walking the path of high-quality goods. Battleships seek quality and not quantity, because they already have a powerful desolation great power. There is no need to rely on such a conventional power like the battleship army. The 3 legions of the Magic Hall have really kicked a hard iron plate this time. Although the 3 legions and the captive army are huge in scale, the existence with the strongest individual combat power is only at the 1st level of the Universe Supreme level, and the opponent is a powerful 2nd level Supreme Being. He is not even comparable to an ant, and he can crush him to death with just one finger. The outcome of this battle is already without suspense. What the Warrior Lion Supreme Being of the Warrior Lion Supreme Being said was right. Previously, he was not speaking arrogantly. Facing the 3 legions of the Magic Hall who came to provoke him, even if he only relied on his own strength, he could easily destroy the enemy. As for the Warrior Lion Supreme Army, there is no need to send out a single soldier or ship. Sai, a good show, is about to end. Until the last Sai came, Green Ox, 6-headed blood dragon, Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, Sun Shi, and Li Bei trembled and recovered from their absent-minded state. The scene that just happened in front of them was too shocking. They were indeed not very interested in the Wild Lion Supreme Being who was only a 2nd-order Supreme Expert. After all, their own Lord Demon Lord was already a remote ancient Supreme Being. Compared to him, this War Lion race compared to the Warrior Lion Supreme Being of the Warrior Lion Supreme Being, Wild Lion Supreme Being was not much different from an ant. However, the Warrior Lion Supreme Being of the 4th level had transformed into a 2nd-level Supreme Being within a short period of time. The whole process was extremely shocking. Even Green Ox, 6-headed blood dragon, Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, Sun Shi, and Li Bei were extremely shocked because of this. However, it was only shock, and it was far from enough to reach the level of shock. Chapter 4684. The scene before their eyes was too strange. After everyone saw it, they were all stunned at the same time. Puzzled expressions appeared on their faces, and their heads were filled with fog in front of them. Wild Lion Supreme from Tyrant Blood Forbidden Land performed the bloodline technique of 9 changes of Wild Lion, and his cultivation level and physique skyrocketed. In a short span of a dozen breaths, his original strength of a 4th-order universe supremacy had skyrocketed to a 2nd-order primordial era great being. And in the 3 great armies of the Magic Hall, the strongest one, 6-headed blood dragon, was only at level 1 of the universe supremes. As for the other 5 great armies, Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, Sun Shi, and Li Bei were only at level 1 of the universe supremes. The last one, Green Bull, was only at level 1 of the Undying Emperors. Such a lineup was not even comparable to ants in front of the primordial era's 2nd-order Wild Lion Supreme. He only needed to stretch out a finger to crush all of them in the void. It could be said that the disparity in strength between the two sides was so great that it could not be described as outrageous. However, in such a bad situation, not only were the 6 great commanders of the 3 great armies of the Magic Hall not shocked, but they also did not escape in horror. Instead, after exchanging glances, they all grinned at each other. Their bodies were as steady as Mount Tai, and their knees did not tremble. They were very confident, as if they did not care about the powerful level 2 of the universe supremes in the void hundreds of millions of miles away. Such a scene stunned everyone. Then, after a short period of silence, the scouts from the various races and powers who were hibernating in the void behind shook their heads and sighed. Sigh, it seems that the green ox and the 6-headed blood flood dragon have been scared out of their wits by the terrifying scene in front of them. This is clearly the rhythm of a mental breakdown. Even if the War Lion clan's Wild Lion Supreme doesn't make a move, they'll be crippled today. Their minds will collapse. It is as if they have gone mad and are ruined. This is how it should be. After all, even 6-headed blood dragon, a level 1 of the universe supremes, is no different from an ant in the eyes of Wild Lion Supreme. Especially that green bull, who is only at level 1 of the Undying Emperors, standing at the forefront of the battle line between the two armies is a huge joke. It is too dazzling. Let's retreat. There is no more suspense. The battleship army of the warrior lion race will not even be mobilized. Wild Lion Supreme alone can destroy the entire army of the Magic Hall in a short period of time. That's right, the current Wild Lion Supreme is already a powerful second-stage Desolate Ancient. I am lying dormant in the distant void, spying on him from afar. To him it is actually a great disrespect. If he is angry because of this, no matter how far away he is, he can instantly. He will kill us in an instant. For the sake of our little lives, it's better to tactfully flee far away before the battle begins. As these sighs and whispers sounded, the scouts of the major clans and forces who were lying dormant in the distant void and looking at the battlefield from afar, whether it was the ferocious beasts, the survivors, the battleships, or the battleships, all of them were watching and spying. All of them started to slowly retreat at the same time. The scale of the battle today had exceeded their expectations. No one dared to offend a powerful level 2 of the universe supremes. That was tantamount to courting death. Besides, the final result of the battle was no longer suspenseful. Hence, there was no need for them to stay here. Ants, this sovereign will give you one last chance. At this time, as the scouts of the various powers who were hiding in the distance slowly retreated, Wild Lion Supreme, who was at the edge of the blood tyrant Forbidden Land, transmitted his voice again. It was filled with endless disdain and arrogance. The 6 of you kneel down and beg for mercy in half an hour. If you can move me today, I will leave you a complete corpse. Roar. At this moment, Wild Lion Supreme, whose cultivation had reached the 2nd order of the primordial era, was simply complacent. Halfway through his words, he raised his head and let out a wild roar. Following that, the voice of his divine sense resounded throughout the vast void of the entire star field. Everyone could hear it clearly. As for the subordinates of the Magic Hall Legion at the back, whether it is the beasts, the survivors, or the experts from the various races of the 3 great starry skies, no matter what their cultivation is, as long as they surrender, I will not implicate them. If they refuse to realize their mistakes and resist stubbornly, kill them all. Those who surrender voluntarily, the warship's kinetic energy cabin will be turned off. The personnel will leave the warship and line up in the void on the right side of the warship, waiting to be incorporated. Anyone who refuses to listen to orders and acts rashly will be killed immediately. Roar! After finishing his last sentence, Wild Lion Supreme once again raised his head and let out a wild roar, his arrogant and domineering aura unfurling without a doubt. These words were the words roared out by Azure Ox when the 3 great legions of the Magic Hall Legion were attacking the headquarters of the Blood Flood Dragon and Azure Rock clans. Now, coming from the mouth of Wild Lion Supreme of the Battle Lion clan, the target was the 3 great legions of the Magic Hall Legion. This was clearly intentional, a blatant humiliation and ridicule. Unfortunately, after Wild Lion Supreme's divine sense voice faded away, the countless battleships in the void in front of him didn't react in the slightest. Perhaps the captives of the Blood Flood Dragon and Azure Rock clans were already moved, but there was no need for them to come out of the warships and surrender. Because these 2 clans and the Battle Lion clan were on good terms, Even if Wild Lion Supreme of the two clans made a move, he would not implicate them. As for the three great legions of the Magic Hall Legion, it was even more impossible for anyone to be moved. At this moment, whether it was the beasts of the three great legions, the survivors of the primordial era, or the experts of the three great starry skies in the Nomad Legion, the way they looked at Wild Lion Supreme was as if they were looking at a fool. At the very front of the Legion, the smiles on the faces of the six-headed blood-fled dragon, Azure Ox, Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, Sun Shi, and Li Bei became even more brilliant at this moment. They were indeed very happy. The more arrogant Wild Lion Supreme was, the more interesting this scene would be in their eyes. Humph, you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. After waiting for a few breaths, there was no movement at all. On the contrary, the six-headed blood-fled dragon, Azure Ox, and the others at the front of the opposing camp were even happier. When this scene fell into the eyes of Wild Lion Supreme, he immediately felt that it was boring. As a cold snort came out from his nose, his expression darkened, and the aura of cultivation in his body suddenly condensed. This was the rhythm of him immediately making a move. You are publicly calling for this Star Lord's subordinates and generals to surrender. Do you think this Star Lord is a decoration? Right at this moment, Yi Xian's voice sounded in the void without any warning. It was impossible to know where it came from. Chapter 4685. In the void, Yi Xian's voice suddenly rang out without any warning. Sila. Immediately after, almost in the next instant, a crack appeared in the void far above Wild Lion Supreme's head. An incomparably huge black club, like a giant pillar that could pierce through the sky, stretched out from the crack and smashed down on Wild Lion Supreme's head. At this moment, an unprecedented sense of life and death crisis surfaced in Wild Lion Supreme's heart. Almost subconsciously, he immediately raised his head to look at the distant sky above his head. Along with a clear gasp of cold air from his mouth, Wild Lion Supreme's expression instantly changed, and his body trembled violently as he exclaimed in shock, "Stage 2 Desolate Master? This is impossible." Pung! Without waiting for him to finish his exclamation of shock, the black club that stretched out from the crack in the sky had already smashed down with a loud bang, landing on Wild Lion Supreme's head. An earth-shattering explosion resounded, reverberating throughout the entire void. Wild Lion Supreme's huge body instantly exploded into a cloud of blood mist under this attack, spreading out just like that. Until death. He couldn't even finish his exclamation of shock. It could be said that he died in an incomparably sullen manner. Although Wild Lion Supreme's true cultivation level was only at the 4th level of the Universe Supreme, the current him, under the 7th transformation of the 9 changes of the Wild Lion bloodline ability, his true combat power was that of a true Stage 2 Supreme Being. A powerful Stage 2 Supreme Being was actually smashed to death by a black club. His entire huge body turned into a cloud of blood mist, and not a single strand of hair was left behind. He didn't even have time to finish his words. This was simply the most cowardly Supreme Being of the primordial era in history. Of course, this time Yi Xian's true body actually didn't come to take action. He was still in the magic hall of the Rising Sun Forbidden Ground, only sending a projection over with a black club. Even so, it was completely enough to kill a Stage 2 Supreme Being. It could be said that it was incomparably easy. Of course, he had also deliberately made some changes to the big-headed black stick. Although the general shape was similar, it was still an incomparably ferocious big stick. However, it had already turned into the shape of a club. It was still different from the original big-headed black stick. After all, in this void fragment of the void, there were too many Supreme Beings from the 3 main starry skies of the current era, from the various races and top powers of the 3 main starry skies of the current era. If he directly showed the black club to others, he was afraid that he would be instantly exposed. Yi Xian currently didn't intend to do so, so he could only do so. Fortunately, although the shape had changed, the power was still the same, and was still ferocious, overflowing with the sky. Xiao! Almost in the next moment, the sound of a faint sound of breaking the void, the black club from the void fragment of the void in the sky, the black from the void in the sky, the void from the crack in the void fragment of the void space. This was a violent ape. Its body was only about 10 feet tall, but its eyes were filled with a fierce light. At this moment it had already put away its black club. Its hands were behind its back, and the expression on its face was calm. It was as if what it had just done was just a small matter that was not worth mentioning. The violent ape was Yixian. Of course, it was not his original body, but a projection clone sent over by a great divine ability. Even so, in the eyes of the six-headed blood flood dragon, Zhao Dong, Qiannan, Sun Shi, and Li Bei, he was still their demon master. Even the green ox, who was extremely familiar with Yixian, could tell that after this fellow sent a projection clone over and killed the berserk lion supreme of the battle lion race with a huge club, he did not leave. Instead, he walked out of the void fragment and even posed. He clearly wanted to take the opportunity to show off therefore, although the green ox was rather speechless, at such a critical moment and in public, it would not embarrass Yixian. Welcome, Demon Master. Demon Master is mighty. After being stunned for a moment, the six-headed blood dragon, green ox, Zhao Dong, Qiannan, Sun Shi, and Li Bei all knelt down on one knee in the void and called out to the demon lord. In the void of the universe behind the six of them, in the three legions of the demon palace, all the ferocious beasts of the starry sky, the survivors, and the current experts of the various races and forces of the nomadic army, regardless of whether they were in the void or on the battleship. Within the battleship, all of them knelt down without exception. As for the captives of the blood flood dragon and the azure rock race that had just been recruited recently, although they had never seen the so-called demon master, after being stunned for a moment, no one dared to delay. Regardless of whether they were willing or not, they all knelt down on one knee. Go down and call out to the demon master. In an instant, the vast expanse of heaven and earth was filled with the sound of worship and respect. Even the void trembled slightly. All of this had happened too quickly and too quickly. From the moment Wild Lion Sovereign subconsciously raised his head to look at the sky above his head until now, his entire body had disappeared. However, endless sounds of worship resounded in the void. From beginning to end, it had only been 4 or 5 breaths of time. Whether it was the Battle Lion race's 200 million battleship army, or the various large races that were retreating in the distance, none of them had the time to react. However, without exception, their bodies all froze on the spot. Everyone's mouths were wide open, their eyes were wide open, and their expressions were as if they had just been struck by lightning. Then, in a short 2 to 3 breaths, these fellows finally recovered from the indescribable shock that enveloped their hearts. As their bodies shook violently, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. Then they subconsciously cried out in alarm. For a moment the sound was like a tide, and in the void it was as if a great earthquake had broken out. Heaven's Lord Wild Lion Sovereign actually fell? How is this possible? Right now, he is an incomparably powerful second stage almighty in the 7th transformation of the Berserk Lion. It's over. Even Lord Wild Lion Sovereign was instantly killed. Countless clansmen in my Battle Lion race's base camp will probably not be able to escape today. What happened? That second stage almighty of the Battle Lion race actually died? He was smashed into a bloody mist by a staff and dispersed with a loud bang? An illusion. It must be an illusion. Demon Master? That astral berserk ape is actually the legendary master of the Magic Hall. It's too powerful. Just a projection avatar that descended could easily insta-kill Wild Lion Sovereign of the Battle Lion race, blasting him to the point of exploding. This is definitely the cultivation level of a primordial supreme, the strongest supreme existence below the heavenly Tao realm. Chapter 4686. At this time, along with a wave of exclamations in the surrounding void, the starry sky berserk ape that stepped out of the void crack high in the sky had already turned its head to look at the 200 million Battle Lion race army outside the tyrant blood-forbidden area. His eyes gleamed coldly as he snorted. That old lion has already fallen. Why aren't you all kneeling? What are you all trying to do? Pung! Pung pung! Almost in the next instant, 4 large fortresses with a diameter of 100,000 meters exploded in this Battle Lion race elite army of 200 million. It was extremely thorough, not even having the chance to become a huge fireball, as they were all annihilated in space. Other than Mad Lion Supreme, within the main camp of the Battle Lion race within the Forbidden Land, there were 4 other beings that exceeded the Emperor level. These 4 elders were all Universe Knights, similar to Zhao Dong, Qiannan, Sun Shi and Li Bei. Now these 4 old fellows, along with the great stronghold that they were in, had all been turned into ashes. However, the starry sky berserk ape, who had done all of this, didn't even raise a finger. With just a thought, it had already been completed. Previously, the Green Ox and the nomadic army under its command had fled for more than 10 years in the void of the great desolate world. It could be said that they had been bullied to the extreme. This time Yi Xian mobilized the Demon Palace's army to take revenge and place the Blood Flood Dragon, the Azure Rock, and the Battle Lion in the ranks of the three races. In order to strike at the target, he could ignore the beings below the night level, but as the true upper echelon of the night level who gave the orders, he wouldn't let any of them go. Only then could the other races and powers feel the determination of the Magic Hall. In the future, if anyone dared to provoke them, they would fight to the death, and everyone would have to consider carefully. Plop! Plop! At this moment, as the four venerables of the warring lion race, along with the large fortress they were in, were completely turned into ashes in the blink of an eye and disappeared. Within the army of 200 million warships of the warring lion race, countless thumping sounds could be heard as they knelt down. The sound of kneeling could be heard. A large number of lion race clansmen who had been standing in the void of the universe outside the battleship were the same. Their bodies went limp as they knelt down in the void, their bodies trembling. Moo! What are you waiting for? Immediately take them in. Seeing this, Green Cow raised his head and roared, announcing the fate of all the warriors within the main camp. This battle was too shocking. A normal battle had ended before it even started. After doing all of this, Yi Xian didn't stay here at all. He turned his head around and swept his gaze across the distant void. With a cold snort, he stepped into the spatial crack that had always existed and returned, disappearing without a trace. The scouts from the various clans and forces in the distant void all felt chills run down their spines as if they had fallen into an ice cave after being swept by his gaze. They knew that the last glance was a silent warning from the master of the Magic Hall. An expert of this level didn't need to use words to express anything. A glance was enough to suppress everything. With endless fear and trepidation, these scouts from the various races didn't dare to stay here any longer. They all quietly left this place. And with their departure, everything that had just happened here would definitely spread through the void of this primordial world fragment at the fastest speed. The mysterious master of the Magic Hall, who was also the boss behind the scenes that Green Cow of the Starry Sky Nomadic Army had been thinking about for more than 10 years, was actually an extremely powerful second-order desolate supremacy. Once this news spread, the entire void would probably fall silent. Who knew how many people would be scared out of their wits? In the past 10 years, in this primordial world fragment, the races and powers that had bullied Green Cow and his Starry Sky Nomadic Army were not few in number. Although he had only taken the lead and dealt with the Blood Flood Dragon, Green Rock, and Battle Lion clans for the time being, if they met again in the future, as long as the Green Ox made a ruckus, the clans that had once bullied him would probably not have a good time. This time, the post-battle inventory of the Battle Lion race's headquarters in the Tyrant Blood Forbidden Ground only took a day. Green Cow also took this opportunity to gather the captives and battleships of the Blood Dragon, Green Rock and Battle Lion race. The final statistics were pleasing. After this battle, the three races had captured close to 600 million battleships of various types, and close to 10 billion strong warriors of the three races. Among them, there were more than 300 emperors and over 100 emperors. These powers, when the three armies returned victorious, would all be included in the captive army that hadn't been sent out yet. From then on, the Blood Dragon, Green Rock and Battle Lion races' powers in this primordial world fragment would be completely removed. Gathering together, they would become one of the four armies of the Magic Hall, the captive army. The original captive army was made up of the captives from the Blood Dragon, Green Rock and Battle Lion race. Now, with the addition of the captives from the three races, the higher-ups of this army, the emperors, would reach over 200. The original 300 emperors would reach over 600. Their total military strength was over 20 billion. There were all kinds of warships and fortresses, as well as small fortresses with a diameter of 50,000 meters. The total number of fortresses was over 1 billion. This time, the Blood Flood Dragon, Green Rock and Battle Lion tribes had captured over 30 million fortresses with a diameter of 100,000 meters. After they returned, these 20 million fortresses would all be taken out and provided to the elites who walked the path of travel. Nomad Army. The nomadic army under the Devil Hall originally had 20 million large fortresses with a diameter of 100,000 meters. After receiving these supplies, they would have an astonishing 50 million fortresses with a diameter of 100,000 meters. 50 million and all 100,000 meter large fortresses, this was definitely a terrifying number. If they were all fired at once, 50 million antimatter energy cannons with a diameter of 30,000-40,000 m would envelop an entire star field. Even a primordial ancient would be afraid. Even he would have to retreat in fear once everything was done. Under the Azure Ox's orders, the three armies of the demonic hall took the captives from the Bloodline Serpent, Azure Rock, and Battle Lion clans and set off on their triumphant return to the Forbidden Land of Sunrise. Very quickly, the space around the Tyrant Blood Forbidden Land went completely silent. As they left, the entire vast space of the primordial world fragment began to boil. Everyone was shocked and kept quiet out of fear. At the same time, within the ancestral land of the Blood Dragon race of the Second Universe. Chapter 4687. The Blood Flood Dragon clan was currently one of the top 10 clans in the Second Universe of the three main planes of the universe. However, the truth was that even in the ancient era, the Blood Wyrm clan was extremely famous in the endless starry sky. The current Blood Flood Dragon clan was the bloodline descendants of the nine-headed Blood Flood Dragon of the primordial era. The bloodline ancestor of the nine-headed Blood Flood Dragon was the legendary Blood Sea Demon Flood Dragon of the primordial era. The first ancestor of the Blood Flood Dragon clan was already a primordial era almighty existence at the end of the primordial era. He had even caught up with the tail end of the primordial era's great battle that caused chaos in the primordial era. He was not injured in the battle and died after that. For countless years, in a secret realm in the depths of the Blood Flood Dragon clan's ancestral land, there had always been a boundless blood cloud that was thousands of miles wide that rolled endlessly in the void. This blood cloud had a majestic aura that stretched for thousands of miles. Within the blood cloud, one could vaguely see a 10,000-foot-long nine-headed blood flood dragon swallowing clouds and spitting out mist. Its aura was not as strong as primordial supreme beings like the Golden Divine Dragon or the primordial Yaksha, but it was not as strong as primordial supreme beings like the Void Ladle. It was not weak. This nine-headed blood flood dragon was clearly heavily injured. He was the first ancestor of the Blood Flood Dragon clan, the nine-headed blood flood dragon. At the end of the primordial era's great battle, only 3 of the 9 heads of the nine-headed blood flood dragon were left. His body was also covered in wounds. He belonged to the primeval Heaven's Eye faction. While he was hiding in the deepest part of the Blood Flood Dragon race's ancestral land and healing his wounds in secret, there was always a chain about 3 meters long that suddenly dropped down from the sky above the nine-headed Blood Flood Dragon's head. It was the Netherworld Furnace's runic lotus that delivered the all-evil origin liquid to him. In the past, before the changes in the origin of all evil star region occurred, a drop of origin liquid of all evil would drip from the end of the chain every year. However, the nine-headed blood serpent would not use up all of it. The nine-headed blood Wyrm would only absorb about 3/4 of the evil origin elixir that was produced every year to repair itself. As for the remaining quarter, he would inject it into the giant crimson egg that was surging up and down in the blood cloud's central domain. The blood-colored egg was his direct descendant, and it could be said that he was the second-generation ancestor of the Blood Wyrm tribe. Once they were born, they would possess the cultivation of the universe realm, and their future would be limitless. In fact, the blood-colored egg was the Crown Prince Jiao. Back when Yi Xian was in the deepest part of the root of all evil, he had borrowed the power of the headless corpses to enter the netherworld cauldron and secretly concoct some abominable venom. At that time, a drop of it followed the rune chains of the netherworld furnace and was transported to the deepest part of the Blood Wyrm clan's ancestral land, where it was obtained by the nine-headed Blood Wyrm. It was also at that time that the nine-headed blood horn dragon was almost poisoned to death. Even the horned dragon Crown Prince, which had been in gestation, was injured because of this. After waiting for a year, this was the result. The nine-headed Blood Wyrm was furious, but because his injuries were too severe, he couldn't tear through the void space to search for the horned dragon Crown Prince. At that moment he could only vent his anger by roaring like thunder. At that time, all the members of the Blood Wyrm clan outside the secret region, including the leader, were prostrating themselves on the ground, trembling. They didn't know what had happened in the secret region of the ancestral land to make the bloodline ancestor so angry later. The one drop of all evil origin liquid that the netherworld furnace produced every year suddenly doubled. For a few years, 2 drops were delivered every year. Because of this, the injuries of the 9-headed blood Devouring healed quickly, and the Crown Prince Zhao was born because of this. Unfortunately, the Crown Prince Zhao's foundation was damaged by the all-evil origin liquid during the gestation process, so he was congenitally deficient. Because of this, the 9-headed blood Devouring doted on the Crown Prince Zhao a lot. After Yi Xian entered the void space fragment of the Chaos Era from the Een Demon clan in the second universe, the 9-headed blood Devouring tried his best to nurture the Crown Prince Zhao. After dozens of years, the power of the Crown Prince Zhao was raised to the middle stage of the Universe Master level. At that moment, among the ancestors in the ancestral land of the blood Wyrm clan, a 6-headed blood Wyrm woke up. He was a Universe Master at the pinnacle of the 9th stage. For the sake of training, the Crown Prince Zhao took the initiative to enter the void space fragment of the Chaos Era. The 9-headed blood Devouring doted on him and didn't stop him. He ordered the 6-headed blood Devouring to be his protector. As for himself, after the Crown Prince Zhao and the 6-headed blood Devouring left, he entered his final sleep. Before this sleep, the 9 blood-colored heads of the 9-headed blood Devouring had all grown out, and he recovered to the pinnacle of the 9th stage of the Desolation Era. He was only one step away from becoming a Desolation Era Supreme. His goal in this last slumber was to break through to the Desolate Supremacy realm and break through the strongest state in his previous life. Then, he would lead the entire Blood Dragon tribe to the Primordial World Fragment Void and wait for the Primordial World to fully descend. The battle was about to begin. The Chaos Era, the Chaos Era, the Chaos Era. It had been several years since the Crown Prince Zhao and the 9-headed blood Wyrm clan left with the elites of the blood Wyrm clan and entered the huge void space crack of the Een Demon clan. They were heading toward the vast void space fragment of the Chaos Era. After using up all the top-tier cultivation resources he had collected and accumulated, as well as the all-evil origin liquid he had slowly accumulated over the years, and the accumulation he had accumulated over the years from the end of the Chaos Era to the present, the 9-headed blood Wyrm clan finally broke through the Chaos Era. He successfully broke through and became a Desolation Master. Roar! Roar! At that moment, in the secret region in the ancestral land of the blood Wyrm clan, the vast blood-colored cloud suddenly surged violently. 9 cheers filled with endless joy came from the blood-colored cloud. The 9 heads of the 9-headed blood Wyrm clan roared toward the sky at the same time. At that moment he was too excited. He had been severely injured since the end of the Chaos Era. 6 of his 9 heads had exploded, and only 3 were left. Now, after countless years, he had finally recovered from his injuries. He had even broken through the peak state of the past and finally achieved his wish of becoming a Desolation Era Supreme. Zhao, wait for me. I will join you soon. In this life, I will definitely help you become a Supreme Desolation Master. After a long time, the 9-headed blood Wyrm clan's excitement gradually calmed down. As he muttered softly, he subconsciously sensed the divine sense imprint that he had left in the Crown Prince Zhao's body. Screech! How dare you! You merely used a secret technique to become a Desolation Master and deceived the world. How dare you kill my Zhao? I will fight you to the death. Chapter 4688. Because the imprint didn't have any offensive power and was extremely weak, the information it could transmit was limited. Only the 9-headed blood dragon, who had a supreme bloodline relationship with Crown Prince Flood Dragon, could sense it. That was why even remote Ancient Supreme couldn't sense its existence when he killed Crown Prince Flood Dragon. The reason was that the 9-headed blood dragon valued his only direct bloodline descendant too much. Even if he died accidentally, the 9-headed blood dragon wouldn't let it go easily. No matter what, he had to know who the attacker was. Only then could he wait for an opportunity to report. This was originally a trick he had done on the spur of the moment. Who would have thought that the trick he had left behind would come true when he had just broken through and awakened in an unprecedentedly powerful state? At this moment, the 9-headed blood dragon was furious. As he roared, the secret region in the ancestral land of the Blood Dragon clan trembled violently. Such an accident was unprecedented for the Blood Dragon clan. Outside the secret region, within the vast ancestral land of the Bloodhorn Dragon clan, all the members of the Bloodhorn Dragon clan were frightened out of their wits, including the leader of the Bloodhorn Dragon clan, whose power had skyrocketed over the past few years. Now, he had just broken through to become a universe master, and he was prostrating himself on the ground. He was trembling. In fact, even the ancestors of the Bloodhorn Dragon clan, who were originally still in deep slumber in the depths of the ancestral land of the Bloodhorn Dragon clan, woke up one after another due to this earth-shattering commotion. There were quite a few of them. They had accumulated from the end of the ancient era until now, and there were thousands of them, all of whom were universe knights or above. Among them, there were even a dozen ancient blood dragons who had just become powerful beings of the ancient era. They belonged to the same era as the six-headed blood dragon and had been in deep sleep since the ancient era. After the end of the ancient era originally, it wasn't time for them to wake up. They were going to sleep for a while and wake up at the last moment before the end of the ancient era. But now, because of the roaring of the nine-headed blood dragon, they were all disturbed and woke up in advance. Congratulations, ancestor, for becoming a desolate master. Very soon, the ancestors of the Blood Devouring clan who had just woken up discovered that their nine-headed Blood Devouring was now a powerful primordial supreme. Overjoyed, they all knelt on one knee and congratulated him. There's nothing to congratulate me for. I'm not in a good mood right now. The 6 blood flood dragons have betrayed me, and Jar has been killed. Amidst the rolling blood clouds, the nine-headed blood flood dragon, which had gradually calmed down, emitted the voice of his divine sense, revealing an endless chill. Pass down the order. The Blood Flood Dragon clan will migrate and enter the void fragment of the great desolate world in advance. I'll take my leave first. I'll tear open the void and leave. All of you take all of the Blood Devouring tribe members and migrate afterward. Also, after this sovereign leaves, remember to inform the Old Rock and the Old Lion. Tell them that the vanguard army of the Blood Wyrm clan has most likely been completely annihilated. The vanguard army of the Azure Rock clan and the Battle Lion clan is most likely the same. It's up to them to decide. Roar. Hiss. After he finished his last sentence, the nine-headed blood dragon raised his head and roared again. The majestic blood cloud in the deepest part of the Blood Dragon clan's ancestral land suddenly shrank rapidly. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a faint blood-colored light that directly tore through the void. It disappeared just like that. This news was too shocking. All the patriarchs of the various eras in the ancestral land of the Blood Dragon clan were shocked. However, no one dared to disobey the orders of the nine-headed Blood Dragon clan. Very soon, the patriarchs of the various eras who had awakened in advance all moved out. Some went to the Azure Rock clan, some went to the Battle Lion clan, but most of them stayed behind. Come. Order the entire clan to pack up immediately and prepare to rush to the void fragment of the great desolate world. The ancestral land of the Azure Rock clan. It was said that the Azure Rock clan was the descendant of the Azure Skyrock of the ancient era, and the bloodline ancestor of the Azure Skyrock was the legendary Kuan Pung of the primordial era. The Kuan Pung was the same as the Netherworld Emperor. In the primordial era, it was a supreme existence that was comparable to the Golden Divine Dragon and the Void Tortoise. Back then, the nine-headed Blood Dragon, the Cyan Skyrock, and the blood-devouring War Lion all joined the camp of the Green Eye of the Heavenly Way of Untainted Land at the end of the Great War in the Untainted Land. They participated in the destructive war that destroyed the Untainted Land. At that time, among the 3 old fellows, the nine-headed Blood Dragon clan and the Azure Skyrock were already at the great perfection of the primordial era's rank 9, which was equivalent to the half-step desolate supremacy. The blood-devouring Battle Lion was even stronger. Although it was only at the rank 1 primordial era, with the support of the 9 changes of the Berserk Lion bloodline ability, it had the terrifying battle strength of a rank 1 desolate supremacy. However, after that battle, the 3 old fellows were all seriously injured. After the great desolate world collapsed, they left their bloodlines and multiplied into the Blood Dragon clan, the Azure Rock clan, and the Battle Lion clan. The 3 old fellows were hibernating in the depths of the ancestral land of the 3 clans, recovering from their injuries. Now countless years had passed. The great desolate era that had disappeared in the long river of history was about to descend again in the form of an apocalyptic world. The nine-headed Blood Dragon clan was not the only one who knew this. The Azure Skyrock and the blood-devouring battle lion were also well aware of this. As powerful generals in the primeval Heaven's Eye camp, they still had certain channels to obtain news from the primeval Heaven's Eye and knew some of the arrangements made. Now the nine-headed blood dragon clan had already recovered and advanced further, stepping into the unprecedented desolate supremacy realm. The Azure Skyrock and the blood-devouring battle lion, who were originally at the same cultivation level as him and had even suffered lighter injuries, were obviously close to breaking through. At this time, a primordial era ancestor of the Blood Dragon clan came to the ancestral land of the Azure Rock clan. Under the guidance of the Azure Rock clan ancestor, he entered the deepest secret realm of the ancestral land of the Azure Rock clan. Soon the Azure Skyrock knew everything about the Blood Dragon clan, as well as the general situation that happened in the void of the Great Desolate World Fragment. Screech. An earth-shattering screech sounded from the secret realm of the Azure Rock clan's ancestral land. Following that, a powerful oppressive aura that belonged to a primordial supreme swept out from the secret realm. Congratulations, ancestor. You've finally broken through. At this moment, the Azure Rock clan ancestor was stunned for a moment. Then ecstasy appeared on his face. He immediately prostrated himself on the ground and congratulated loudly. Whoosh whoosh. There was no response, but the sound of wings flapping faintly came from the depths of the secret realm of the Azure Rock clan's ancestral land. The entire void that was shrouded in green fog trembled slightly. Then, countless arrows in the shape of feathers appeared from the void. They were like green goose feathers fluttering in the wind, covering the sky and the sun, covering a part of the sky. This was one of the most powerful killing techniques of the Azure Sky Rock lineage. Demonic rock sealing the heavens. Chapter 4689. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Countless arrows that were in the shape of feathers appeared in space, and they fluttered like azure-colored snow that blotted out the sky and covered the heavens and the earth. The voice of the Azure Skyrock's divine sense sounded out at this moment, and it revealed boundless ghastly coldness. The three clans are united. The old blood dragon went to that void alone. I can't sit by and do nothing, so I'll rush there immediately. Pass down the order. The Azure Skyrock clan will also migrate and enter that void fragment in advance. After I leave, wake up all the slumbering elders in the ancestral land. Then take all the clansmen and set off with the Blood Dragon and Battle Lion clans to migrate. Roar. Screech. After the last sentence, the overwhelming green feathers that shrouded the sky suddenly condensed into a green light. In the blink of an eye, it tore through the void and disappeared. The Battle Lion clan was naturally warlike, and their bloodline was extremely powerful. Among the clans of the Second Universe Federation, they were ranked third. Even the other clans of the top 10 clans were not willing to provoke them easily, because all the clansmen of this clan were too warlike. They would either not fight or fight to the death, and they would only stop when one side fell. It was said that the bloodline ancestor of the Battle Lion clan was the bloodthirsty lion of the primordial era. Its 9 changes of the wild lion was extremely powerful, and it had once shown in the Battle of the Primordial Era. At the end of the Battle of the Primordial Era, the bloodline ancestor of the Battle Lion clan, the bloodthirsty lion, belonged to the camp of the Heavenly Eye. He had once fought side by side with the 9-headed blood dragon and the Azure Skyrock. After that battle, the three of them were seriously injured at the same time, and went into hibernation to recover from their injuries. At that time, the bloodthirsty lion of the Battle Lion clan was the weakest among the three of them. The 9-headed blood dragon and the Azure Skyrock were already at the first level of the primordial era, half-step desolate masters. The bloodthirsty lion was only at the first level of the primordial era. But in fact, his real combat power was the strongest among the three of them. Even the 9-headed blood dragon and the Azure Skyrock were not as good as him. They could only admit defeat. This was because the bloodline of the blood-devouring ferocious lion came from the blood-slaughtering ferocious lion that had already shaken the Great Desolate World during the early days of the Great Desolate Era. The bloodthirst lion was the same as the bloodthirst serpent dragon and the Kuan Pong. It was one of the most powerful existences in the primordial era. It was on the same level as the void tortoise, the golden divine dragon, and the primordial yaksha. The bloodlust lion had an extremely powerful bloodline ability that was no weaker than the primordial yaksha's most powerful ability, the heaven-falling bow. That was the 9 berserk lion transformations. With each transformation, his body would expand by 10 times, and his cultivation would increase by 1 level. With the 9 transformations, one's cultivation base would be raised by a whole realm. During the Desolate Era, even though the Bloodslaughter Lion was merely a 3rd-order Venerable Realm expert, after executing the 9 changes of the Berserk Lion, even the Void Tortoise Golden Divine Dragon, and Desolate Ancient Yeksha were only half of a 9th-order Venerable Realm expert. Even Bu Tiandao was extremely fearful of him. Once he fought with him, unless he used a powerful ability like the Heaven-Falling Bow, he was almost no match for him. However, the Bloodslaughter Lion was the same as the Bloodthirst Serpent Dragon and the Kuan Pong. Before the end of the Great War of the Desolate Era, he had disappeared. No one knew whether he was alive or dead. In fact, except for the Void Tortoise, when the Great War of the Desolate Era first broke out, almost all the powerful Desolate supremacies of both sides were in the same situation. All of them had disappeared, and there was no news of them. Perhaps they had gone into hibernation, healing their injuries or breaking through. Perhaps they had really fallen. At this moment, in the ancestral land of the Battle Lion tribe, one of the top 10 tribes in the second universe, a Blood Flood Dragon tribe ancestor had just arrived. The Blood Flood Dragon tribe ancestor had explained everything that had happened to the Blood Flood Dragon tribe, as well as the general situation of the unexpected changes in the Void Fragment of the Desolate Era to the Battle Lion tribe patriarch. The two of them had just entered the deepest part of the Battle Lion tribe's ancestral land, when they stopped outside a secret realm with a violent aura. The secret realm in front of them was the place where the Battle Lion tribe ancestor, the Blood Devouring Lion, was recuperating in seclusion, since the Blood Flood Dragon tribe and the Green Rock tribe have decided to enter the Void Fragment of the Desolate Era in advance. After a short silence, the Blood Devouring Lion's divine sense voice came from the secret realm in front of them, revealing an endless chilling intent. Our 3 tribes were originally of the same breath and branch. The old Blood Flood Dragon tribe and the old Rock tribe ancestor went to that void. Now that they have broken through to the Desolate Supremacy realm, even if they encounter a powerful existence, they will be fine. Pass down the order, the Battle Lion tribe will also migrate and enter the Void Fragment of the Desolate Era in advance. Wake up all the slumbering elders in the ancestral land, then lead all the tribe members and set off together with the Blood Flood Dragon tribe and the Green Rock tribe to migrate. But this Venerable One will continue to stay here. Now, although this Venerable One has recovered to the peak of the Desolate Era's first level of cultivation, even so, under the use of the 9 changes of the Wild Lion Bloodline ability, the strongest combat strength that can be achieved is only the first level of the Desolate Supremacy. Although the peak combat strength of the old Blood Flood Dragon and the old Rock is also the same, this Venerable One is different from them. They have already stepped into the Desolate Supremacy realm. Even if they break through 1 level of cultivation, it will take a long time before they can break through again. However, this Venerable One's true cultivation realm is only the first level of the Almighty Realm, and the space for a breakthrough is even greater. Taking advantage of the fact that the Desolate Era has yet to descend, this Venerable One must seize the time and try to break through a few levels as much as possible. Only then will my combat strength be stronger. Go when you see the old Blood Flood Dragon and the old Rock. Convey this Venerable One's intentions. Tell them that this Venerable One will descend at the critical moment. Roar! Screech! At the end of his speech, a shocking roar and violent howl came from the secret realm in front of him. Then it returned to silence, and there was no more movement. The Blood Flood Dragon tribe's almighty ancestor and the War Lion tribe's patriarch exchanged glances. They did not dare to continue to disturb him. Soon they left the War Lion tribe's ancestral land. For a time, the Blood Flood Dragon tribe, the Green Rock tribe, and the War Lion tribe in the second universe mobilized and hurriedly prepared. Soon the 3 tribes would migrate and leave. Desolate world fragment void. Hiss! Hiss! In an incomparably quiet universe void, a crisp sound of ripping silk suddenly rang out. 2 huge black cracks were torn open in the sky, one on the left and one on the right. 2 figures walked out of it one after another. The cultivation aura emitted from their bodies was actually the terrifying first level of the Desolate Supremacy. Chapter 4690. In the Forbidden Land of Rising Sun, in the black magic hall that stood at the peak of the giant mountain in Yixian's cave-dwelling star. At this moment, Yixian was sitting cross-legged on the throne in the magic hall, closing his eyes to regulate his breathing. The expedition of the 3 legions of the magic hall had ended 2 months ago. and all 3 legions had returned. Now whether it was the 6-headed blood dragon, the green ox, Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, Sun Shi, Li Bei, or the others, in short, almost all of the high-ranking commanders of the 4 legions under the command of the Magic Hall were in seclusion. Over the past 2 months, the entire vast and boundless fragment of the untainted land seemed to be extremely quiet. Previously, there were battles of various sizes that broke out, and the situation that seemed to be noisy temporarily disappeared. After all, there was originally no supreme master of the ancients here. At least he had not officially appeared. But now, the master of the Magic Hall had appeared out of nowhere, and was extremely domineering. Moreover, his old subordinates, the Green Ox and the entire Starry Sky nomadic army, had more or less been bullied by various large clans and forces in the past 10 years. For this matter, the 3 legions of the Magic Hall were deployed, and with an iron-blooded momentum, they destroyed the headquarters of the Blood Dragon, the Green Rock, and the Battle Lion clans in the blink of an eye. Under such circumstances, the other clans and forces naturally did not dare to make any moves. Recently, they had all quieted down, and were on tenterhooks. Yi Xian did not pay attention to this. In the past 2 months, he had been in seclusion in the Magic Hall, but it was not to break through his cultivation, but to consolidate his state of mind. Now as he opened his eyes, some of the hidden dangers of his unstable state of mind due to his previous breakthroughs had been completely smoothed out. In other words, the opportunity for another breakthrough had arrived. Rumble. With a thought, Yi Xian immediately waved his hand and summoned the Shenong cauldron, which hung behind the giant peak. Then, with a flash of his body, he immediately stepped into the mouth of the cauldron, which was filled with 9-colored fog. From there, he entered the space inside the cauldron and sat cross-legged above the central region volcano in the space inside the cauldron. Whoosh! Swish, swish, swish. As he waved his hand, a large number of faint sounds of breaking through the air rang out. In an instant, fine rays of light shot out and hovered in front of him. They were the cultivation resources that he took out from the undying world in his body for this breakthrough. This included the all-evil origin elixir, the 9-colored divine medicine, and so on. There was even a canopy of chaos great medicines that spanned over 10,000 feet. After preparing everything, Yi Xian immediately activated the power of the Shenong Cauldron's domain, compressing all the cultivation resources into the size of an infant fist. With a wave of his hand, Yi Xian swallowed the fist-sized bead and quickly dissolved it. Walala, the energy ball, which had been compressed to the size of a nascent soul's fist, melted as soon as it entered his mouth. At the same time, the sound of rattling chains rang out from Yi Xian's body. All the resources he had swallowed earlier had transformed into a mighty river of energy. Everything was a walk in the park. Yi Xian activated the large river of energy that had just formed in his body, and continuously circulated it through his 100 meridians with all his might. This time the breakthrough was slightly hindered. It took him a full 6 days to completely refine the huge river of energy that had formed in his meridians. As the energy river circulated through his meridians again and again, it finally disappeared completely and merged with his soul and physical body. Yi Xian had only gathered his strength to launch a single attack before the shackles snapped. The anticipated system notification soon sounded in his mind. Ding! Congratulations to host for breaking through the realm of the ancient Dongshu mantra. Current realm. Second Order Primordial God. Ding! Congratulations to host for breaking through the realm of the ancient Dongshu mantra. Current realm. Second Order Primordial God. Second Order Primordial God. Previously, his original body's strength had been at the First Order Primordial God level. After activating the ancient Demon Ape bloodline in his body, he could instantly rise to the Second Order Primordial God level. If he were to use the 9 transformations of the demonic ape and reach the 9th transformation, his combat power would immediately soar to the Second Order Primordial God level. If he were to take into account the 1-level bonus from the boundless energy in his body, his combat power would be comparable to a 3rd Order Desolate Master. But now, with his breakthrough, Yi Xian would instantly possess the strength of a 3rd Order Primordial God level after activating the ancient Demon Ape bloodline in his body. If he were to use the 9 transformations of the Demonic Ape bloodline and enter the 9th transformation, his combat power would be comparable to a 3rd Order Universe Supreme. In addition, if he were to take into account the 1-level bonus from the boundless energy in his body that was 60 million miles long, his combat power would increase by 1 level. Currently, the strongest battle strength that he could display would reach an unprecedented level that was comparable to a 4th-ranked Desolate Sovereign. This was already the middle stage of the Supreme Being level. In other words, Yi Xian could easily suppress anyone below the middle stage of the Supreme Being level by himself. However, the Supreme Being level was not to be underestimated. Suppressing him was one thing, but seriously injuring him was another. As for completely killing him, it was almost impossible to use conventional means in a big battle. It was only possible if he were to use a supreme ability like the Fallen Sky Bow. In fact, Yi Xian still had the Blood Sea Secret Technique. Once he activated the Blood Sea Secret Technique's clone power, he would be able to condense 3 Blood Sea clones in an instant. All of them possessed terrifying battle prowess comparable to a Desolate Sovereign of the 4th step. In the situation of 3 against 1, even if he were to encounter a 5th order or 6th order primordial god, he could guarantee his victory. If he were to use a supreme ability like the Fallen Sky Bow, even a 4th order Desolate Master would be killed by 1 arrow if he was caught off guard. His strongest battle prowess has already reached the 4th order of the Desolate Ancient Sovereign, and he can have at most 3 Blood Sea clones with the same battle prowess. A bright light flashed in Yi Xian's eyes. At this moment, Yi Xian's emotions were unprecedentedly agitated. After calming down slightly, he took a deep breath and once again muttered softly. A 2nd Order Almighty is the great desolate ancient realm that one must reach before consuming a level 29 Desolate Sovereign Treasure Pill. To be able to reach the 9th Order perfection, there are only 7 small breakthroughs left. It seems that the refining of the level 29 Desolate Master Supreme Pill can no longer be delayed. In the near future, this matter will have to be implemented. Speaking of this, his eyes flashed again, but he no longer spoke and fell into deep thought. He had already successfully deduced the perfect pill formula for the level 29 Desolate Master Supreme Pill. Now the devouring system in his body was deducing the perfect pill formula for the level 30 Heavenly Path Treasure Pill. In fact, he had already accumulated 10 of the Supreme Expert's blood essence that was used to refine the level 29 Desolate Sovereign Treasure Pellet. 10 blood essences with Yi Xian's current attainments in alchemy, according to his deduction, he could probably refine 6 to 7 Desolate Master Supreme Pills. The reason why he had not started refining was because he was not satisfied with this amount. After all, this was the Desolate Master Supreme Pill, which required the blood essences as the main raw material to refine. Once the furnace was opened, at least 5 blood essences were needed. Every time he added 1 blood essence, he would be able to refine 1 more Desolate Supreme Treasure Pill. Chapter 4691. Forget it, it's only 6 or 7, it's still too little. After hesitating for a while, Yi Xian finally shook his head, and a wry smile appeared on his face. Fortunately, there are still 7 small stages of breakthrough before reaching the 9th Order Great Perfection, so it's not like there's no time. I'll go back and collect some blood essence before making a decision. After saying that, he threw this matter to the back of his mind and stopped thinking about it for the time being. Just as he was about to get up, Yi Xian seemed to have suddenly sensed something, and his expression suddenly changed slightly. He turned his head and subconsciously looked into the distance. A murmur came out of his mouth like he was sleep-talking. Supreme Ancient Desolation? There are actually 2 Supreme Ancient Desolations. I wonder who is descending. Xiao. In the next moment, with a faint sound of breaking air, Yi Xian's figure disappeared in the blink of an eye. Before disappearing, although he was only in the form of a violent ape, the 9 Devil Ape transformation in his body had been activated and maintained in the state of the 9th transformation. Therefore, at this moment, the cultivation aura emitted from his body was at the peak of the 3rd Order Great Desolation realm. Xiao! Whoosh! In the void, an incomparably sharp sound of breaking through the air rang out. 2 rays of light displayed extreme speed, streaking across the void of this piece of untainted land fragment. Their speed was extremely fast, and the aura of cultivation that permeated the light was incomparably terrifying. It was clearly from the desolate antiquity, 1st Order Great Perfection realm. One of the 2 streaks of light was blood red, while the other was cyan. They were none other than the 1st generation ancestor of the Blood Flood Dragon clan, the 9-headed Blood Flood Dragon clan, and the 1st generation ancestor of the Green Rock clan, the Azure Sky Rock clan. The previous battle of the Magic Hall had already ended 2 months ago. Although they had only arrived now, in fact, they had not delayed on the way. After receiving the news, they had rushed over at full speed. After all, when Crown Prince Jiao was killed, it would take time for the divine consciousness that was left in his body to transmit a message across the barriers of space and reach the secret realm of the Blood Wyrm clan's ancestral land in the second universe. Moreover, no one knew how long it took. Took a full 1.5 months. After that, although the 9-headed blood dragon and the Azure Sky Rock who received the news rushed over as soon as possible, even they could not arrive immediately after crossing such a long distance in the void. Moreover, they were not in the same void. The half a month was also spent on the journey. Because of this, after the 9-headed blood dragon and the Cyan Sky Rock arrived at the void fragment of the untainted world, they did not delay at all. The 9-headed blood dragon used the bloodline aura in its body to sense the location and determine the specific location of the Crown Prince Jiao's death. After giving up on the coordinates, the two of them immediately rushed over to the forbidden land of Rising Sunday. This time, the 9-headed blood dragon and the Cyan Sky Rock had come in anger. In addition, since the two of them were seriously injured at the end of the distant untainted world, they had been hiding in the deepest secret realms of their respective clans' ancestral lands and had never appeared outside. Over the endless years, they had gritted their teeth and tried their best to recover. They had long been bored out of their wits. However, when the two of them recovered from their injuries and made a breakthrough in their cultivation, reaching the First Order remote ancient supreme realm that they had never reached before, suddenly came the news that Crown Prince Jiao was killed. The Blood Wyrm, Cyan Rock, and Battle Lion clans entered this untainted world and shattered it. The news that all the vanguard forces in this void had been captured. Under the fury in his heart, all the grievances and suffocation that had accumulated over the years in seclusion and recuperation seemed to have found a way to vent in an instant. It was as if a dam had burst open, and all the grievances and suffocation instantly gushed out at this moment, as the two of them flew toward the forbidden land of Rising Sun at extreme speed. Along the way, countless powerhouses from all sides were alarmed in the forbidden land of stars and the remnant star fields, as well as the headquarters of the major clans and forces in the world. After a short period of silence, the overwhelming exclamations resounded through the entire void. Immediately afterward, countless figures gathered from all directions, not daring to get too close. There was no way to catch up at all. Their speed could not be compared. Although these experts could only follow behind the 9-headed blood dragon and Azure Sky Rock from afar, they did not disperse. Instead, more and more of them gathered, and gradually, they almost covered the sky and earth as they followed them towards the forbidden land of Rising Sun. At this moment, they all understood what was going on. This was the revenge of the ancestors of the Blood Wyrm clan and Cyan Rock clan. Perhaps soon, the ancestor of the Battle Lion clan would also come. Even in front of them, there were already two powerful remote ancient supremes. Once they arrived at the forbidden land of Rising Sun, these two desolate supremes would definitely engage in a shocking battle with the mysterious master of the Magic Hall. The result was hard to predict, but there was no doubt that this untainted world fragment void was definitely going to change again. Half a day later, outside the forbidden land of Rising Sun, whoosh! With a faint air-breaking sound, a figure rushed out of the forbidden land of Rising Sunday. He was alone, but his speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, he had already arrived at the void hundreds of millions of miles away from the forbidden land of Rising Sunday. It was Yixian in the form of a violent ape. At this moment, hundreds of millions of miles away, there were two streaks of light, one red and one green, shooting toward him from the left and right at an extremely fast speed. Screech! Roar! In the distance, a rock's cry and a WRM's roar sounded at the same time. After arriving here and seeing the figure of the violent ape, the Cyan Rock and the 9-headed blood WRM attacked immediately. A large amount of green mist gushed out of the Cyan Rock's body, and the wind and clouds rolled, covering a corner of the void, trapping the entire battlefield. The sound of flapping wings filled the sky, and the entire void that was shrouded in green mist began to tremble slightly. Then, countless arrows in the shape of feathers appeared from the void. They were like green goose feathers floating in the air, covering the sky and the sun, covering a part of the sky. In the blink of an eye, the rules of the void of this battlefield seemed to be affected by something. It was beneficial to the Cyan Rock, causing its aura to soar by a large margin, while the power of the others was suppressed. At the same time, in another direction, the nine-headed blood Devouring, who was only about 10,000 feet tall, threw a punch as it stretched out its claws. Then, an energy blood Devouring that was more than 10,000 times larger and connected the sky to the earth roared out, shaking the heavens and the earth. His furious roar caused even a corner of the void to collapse from the tremors. Roar! Roar! Although this energy blood Devouring was the same size as the nine-headed blood Devouring, it also had 9 ferocious Devouring heads. Each of them spat out fire, water, and smoke. It also covered a small area of the void, covering the entire body of the violent ape. These were 2 extremely powerful bloodline abilities. Just like the bloodline ability of the Battle Lion clan, which originated from the Bloodslaughter Lion clan, the 9 changes of the Wild Lion, it belonged to the Cyan Rock clan and the Blood Wyrm clan. The innate ability of the Cyan Rock lineage, demonic rock sealing the heavens. Chapter 4692. Screech. Roar. Along with the earth-shattering screech and roar, this vast corner of the void was shaken. The 2 supreme masters of the ancients attacked at the same time, and the scene was too shocking. In this fragment of the void, no one had seen such a shocking scene for a very long time. On the left side, the azure sky rock was billions of feet long, and a large amount of green mist gushed out of its body. The wind and clouds rolled and covered this corner of the void, trapping the entire battlefield. The soul-stirring sound of flapping wings filled the sky, and the entire void that was shrouded in green mist trembled slightly. Countless arrows in the shape of feathers appeared from the void. They were like green goose feathers drifting in the air, blotting out the sun and covering a part of the firmament. On the right side, the nine-headed blood dragon, who was only 10,000 feet long, punched out as it stretched out its claws. It seemed to be very simple, but it was the full blow of the supreme master of the ancients. As he made his move, an energy blood dragon that was more than 10,000 times larger and connected the sky to the earth roared out. Even a corner of the void collapsed due to its earth-shattering roar. Demonic rock seals the sky. Demonic blood dragon fist. At this moment, the strongest bloodline divine ability of the Azure Rock clan and Bloodworm clan were executed at the same time, and they attacked the Starsky ferocious ape from the left and right respectively. Yi Xian had seen these 2 bloodline powers back then. When he fought with the Taoists of the Blood Flood Dragon and Azure Rock clans, he'd felt the powerful might of these 2 bloodline abilities. Unfortunately, although they were strong, they weren't affected by Yi Xian at all. Now, although the same bloodline power was displayed by the Supreme Master of the Ancients, it was far more powerful than when the Taoists of the 2 clans used it. But at the same time, Yi Xian was no longer the Yi Xian of the past. At this moment, although he was facing 2 powerful Supreme Masters of the Ancients at the same time, he was not surprised at all. Both the nine-headed blood dragon and the azure skyrock were only at the first order of the ancients. Although his realm had stabilized, he had only just entered this realm. But it was different for Yi Xian. With the 9th transformation of the 9 Devil Ape Transformations bloodline ability, his battle prowess had reached the 3rd order Venerable Huang realm. And this was without taking into account the 60 million mile-long body's boundless energy and blood, which boosted his battle prowess by 1 level. If Yi Xian withdrew the Blood Sea secret technique and revealed his 60 million li-long true body, his battle prowess would rise to the 4th order Venerable Desolate realm, and he would be even stronger after stepping into the 4th order Venerable Desolate realm. However, that was completely unnecessary. This was because Yi Xian knew very well that even if he possessed the battle strength of a mid-stage 4th order Desolate Venerable, and used the Blood Sea mystic technique to create 3 Blood Sea avatars that possessed the terrifying battle strength of a 4th order Desolate Venerable, he would still not be able to do so. However, in a 3 versus 2 situation, he was still unable to kill the 9-headed blood dragon and the azure sky great rock today. Desolate Venerables were not so easy to kill. When one's cultivation reached this level, there were too many life-saving methods. Unless it was a late-stage 7th order Desolate Venerable, otherwise, even a mid-stage 7th order Desolate Venerable would not be able to kill an early-stage Desolate Venerable. There was no possibility of killing them. That was why so many Primordial Supremes and even Primordial Supremes were only seriously injured instead of dying in the Great War that destroyed the untainted world. That was the reason why so many primordial supremes and even primordial supremes had survived and remained dormant until now. Of course, if Yi Xian really wanted to kill the nine-headed blood dragon and the azure sky great rock, he could still use the fallen sky bow to do so. However, to use it, he would need to use his full strength. In this way, he only had one chance to attack. Even if he succeeded in killing one opponent, the remaining one would be a huge problem. Instead, it would cause Yi Xian himself to fall into a difficult situation. That would be unwise. Anyway, these two guys could not do anything to him. In the future, there would be opportunities to kill them when they were alone. Therefore, Yi Xian was not in a hurry today. What's more, if he killed the nine-headed blood dragon or the azure sky great rock in public, the fallen sky bow in his hand would be exposed. This was not what Yi Xian wanted to see. There were two aspects. First, when Yi Xian was in the three main planes of the starry sky, Yi Xian had used the fallen sky bow before. Although this was not his unique secret skill, it originated from the desolate ancient yaksha. However, if Yi Xian used it in public now, it would most likely attract suspicion. He did not want to expose his identity now, so it was best not to do so. Second, as the end of the desolate world approached, those desolate venerables who had been dormant would probably appear more and more. Previously there was the void giant tortoise. Now there was the nine-headed blood dragon and the azure sky great rock. This was evidence. It could be imagined that in the near future, whether it was in this fragment of the desolate world or in the wider primordial world, there would definitely be more and more desolate venerables. With Yi Xian's style of doing things and the huge lineup of the magic hall, whether it was active or passive, Yi Xian would inevitably interact with these powerful desolate venerables in the near future, and even conflict would break out. Under such circumstances, he obviously should not reveal all of his trump cards now. As a supreme killing ability, the fallen sky bow could be used as a trump card and would be used at the most critical moment in the future. But today the nine-headed blood dragon and the azure sky great rock had taken the initiative to kill him. This was a serious provocation to the dignity of the magic hall. Although there was no way to kill these two old fellows here for the time being, they could avoid death, but they could not escape punishment. It just so happened that Yi Xian had just broken through once, so he could use these two old fellows as whetstones to practice with. He could quickly integrate the gains from his previous breakthrough into his own body. Since that was the case, then there was no need to use the big-headed black stick again. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Yi Xian's eyes flashed with a cold light, and he immediately waved his hand. Swish! Boom! With his terrifying strength as a third-stage desolate venerable, he seemed to have casually waved his hand, but in fact, he had fully activated the power in his body. As an invisible majestic force surged out, the green energy feathers that covered the sky and earth from the left side of the void instantly collapsed. He did this to resolve the crisis of the forbidden land of rising sun behind him. Otherwise, if the azure sky great rock was allowed to attack, the terrifying power of the demonic rock sealing the heavens would definitely sweep in and affect countless stars in the forbidden land of rising Sunday disastrous. Chapter 4693. Bang! The speed of a third-stage desolate venerable was naturally so fast that it made one's hair stand on end. Not to mention the countless experts from various clans and forces who were watching from afar, even the azure sky rock, who was also a supreme desolate venerable, was caught off guard. It avoided the attack of the violent ape. An earth-shattering bang was heard. The terrifying figure of the azure sky rock, which was hundreds of millions of feet long, seemed to have been hit head-on by a piece of heaven and earth. Its momentum came to an abrupt halt, and after a sudden pause, it immediately flew backwards. This scene was too strange. Everyone who saw it had a strange expression on their faces. On one side was the azure sky rock, which was hundreds of millions of feet long. Although it could not be compared to the terrifying figure of Yi Xian's ninth transformation of 60 million miles long, nor could it be compared to the giant void tortoise, it was still large enough. On the other side, it was only a violent ape of stars that was only about 10 feet tall. When the two figures were compared, it was like the difference between a towering mountain and a speck of dust. However, at this moment, when the two figures came into contact, the violent ape of stars that was as small as a speck of dust seemed to be completely fine. As for the azure sky rock that was as large as a towering mountain, its entire body flew backwards uncontrollably in the blink of an eye. Out! Yi Xian had used all his strength in this attack. The full-strength attack of a third-stage Desolate Venerable was not that easy to bear. The Azure Sky Rock opened its mouth and spat out an arrow of blood. It sprinkled in the void, and along the way there was a rain of blood. At this moment the entire void was silent. Then, at the end of the void in the distance, among the experts from various clans and forces who were watching the battle, some figures flew out. It was said that the timid would starve to death, and the bold would be stuffed to death. These figures that flew out were obviously the latter. And the reason why they rushed out was none other than to collect the majestic rain of blood that was scattered along the way when the Azure Sky Rock flew backwards. This was the precious blood of the Supreme Desolate Venerable. Whether it was the ferocious beasts of stars or the survivors of the Desolate Venerable, it was a supreme treasure. Similarly, it was the same for the experts from the three main planes of the starry sky. They could be used to refine some elixirs. This was a rare opportunity because normally, not to mention the precious blood of the Desolate Supreme, not even the shadow of the Desolate Supreme could be seen. Even in the first universe's root of all evil star domain, as well as in the abyss of sin in the Chaos World Fragment Void, there would occasionally be ancient Desolate Supremacy remains in remote areas. However, those corpses had either died a long time ago, causing the energy in their precious blood and flesh to dissipate, making it meaningless, or because their bloodline was special. Even if they died, the energy in their bodies would not dissipate, and the pressure would be too strong, making it impossible to receive. Close. How could there be such a good thing like this? There was no need to pay such a high price. As long as they had the courage to charge out, they would be able to grab the supreme blood from the void. Of course, this kind of action was undoubtedly a rude offense to the owner of the blood, the Azure Sky Rock. If it was any other time, no one would dare to do this. Even if it was the blood arrow spat out by the Azure Sky Rock, it was still related to the existence of the Desolate Supreme level. Naturally, it was not something that any ant could touch. But now the Azure Sky Rock was too busy to care about anything else. The nine-headed blood flood dragon and the ferocious master of the magic hall were even more so. The opportunity could be said to be fleeting. After this village, there would be no such shop for a moment. There was a trace of chaos in the void. A large number of starry sky experts, ferocious beasts and survivors rushed out, collecting the Desolate Supreme blood that was scattered in the void at the edge of the battlefield. The scene was extremely lively for a moment. Everyone expected that the Azure Sky Rock would not care about this matter for the time being. They were fighting for opportunities. In reality, this was indeed the case. In just a few breaths of time, the precious blood sprinkling down from the sky was completely absorbed. Although the Azure Sky Great Pung only spat out a single blood arrow, its body was now millions of zhang long. It was like a star, so even if it was only a single blood arrow, even if it was just a blood arrow, it was enough to benefit many starry sky experts. There were at least tens of thousands of such bold fellows, and more or less all of them had gained something. After a few breaths of time, all the starry sky experts, ferocious beasts, and survivors who had attacked all returned to the crowd unharmed. When this scene fell into the eyes of the other existences, in an instant even more people were moved. Those fellows who had missed the opportunity were all breathing rapidly. Their eyes were wide open, and their eyes were faintly emitting a green light. Their faces were filled with expressions. Their expressions were even more expectant. They were all waiting for the next round of blood rain to fall. Roar! At this time the nine-headed blood flood dragon had already arrived at Yixian's side. It raised its head and roared. Its body was only about 3,000 feet long, and it walked forward with a punch. Although its body was not big, in fact, behind the nine-headed blood flood dragon's head, there was a huge blood flood dragon phantom. It was the same as the Azure Sky Rock, hundreds of millions of feet long. As the nine-headed blood flood dragon punched out, the huge blood flood dragon phantom behind its head also opened its 9 heads at the same time, biting towards Yixian. At this time, the violent ape was only about 10 feet tall. The dragon scale on the 9 heads of the blood flood dragon phantom was countless times larger than him. The 9 huge flood dragon heads came at the same time. In the blink of an eye, one of them swallowed the violent ape whole. This scene was so shocking that it fell into the eyes of the starry sky experts, ferocious beasts, and survivors who were watching the battle from afar in the surrounding void. Everyone was stunned at the same time. Then, under the great change of expression, countless exclamations instantly surged like a tide. What? The master of the magic hall was swallowed in one gulp? This is the strongest magical power of the Blood Flood Dragon clan, called the Blood Flood Dragon Demonic Fist. With a punch, the power of the bloodline evolves into a terrifying Blood Flood Dragon. The 9 heads control 9 different types of energy, and its power is extremely powerful. Now that the master of the magic hall has been swallowed by one of the heads, it is obviously not good. He must have been ravaged by the corresponding type of energy. Even if he doesn't die, I'm afraid he will be seriously injured. Even if he is only seriously injured, for the significance of this battle, what is the difference between being killed on the spot and being killed on the spot? Don't forget, he is facing 2 powerful primordial sovereigns this time. Although their cultivation is not as good as him, after all, they came from a long time ago. They are ancient existences who have lived from the end of the desolate era to the present. Their foundation is too deep. On the other hand, this violent ape has never been heard of in the distant desolate era. He must be a powerhouse born in the present era. Although his talent is heaven-defying and he has cultivated to the 3rd order desolate realm, his foundation is too weak after all. He doesn't have enough battle experience, so he underestimated the enemy for a while. Chapter 4694. As expected, what bullsh *T desolate venerable. This guy is simply a fake. Although he does have the terrifying combat strength of a 3rd order desolate venerable, it was raised by a secret technique. His temperament and experience are not enough to support this level of power. A small mistake and he will lose his footing in an instant. Along with the exclamations in the distant void, the 9-headed blood dragon, who had swallowed the violent ape with the giant flood dragon phantom behind his head, had a complacent look on his face. His divine sense voice sounded out, full of disdain and ridicule. This kind of flashy but impractical existence, not to mention one-on-one. This senior can fight 3 or 5 of him and kill them all. Bam! Just as he finished speaking, an earth-shattering explosion suddenly rang out, behind the 9-headed blood dragon's head. The blood dragon's phantom, which was the same size as the azure sky rock's body, was like a star. The existence in the middle of the 9 heads, which was the one that swallowed the violent ape in one gulp, suddenly exploded without any warning. This was not the 9-headed blood dragon's main body. It was just a phantom, but it was condensed from the 9-headed blood dragon's bloodline talent. At this moment, one of the 9 heads exploded, instantly affecting the 9-headed blood dragon's body, causing his body to tremble violently. As his expression changed drastically, the middle of the 9 heads of his main body instantly spat out a blood arrow shooting forward. It shot forward. 9 heads and 9 mouths, no wonder he's so good at bragging. At practically the exact same moment, the ferocious ape that was swallowed earlier walked out in an extremely leisurely manner from the head of this phantom that had exploded apart, and the voice of his divine sense resounded out, revealing undisguised ridicule. Bang! Before the 9-headed blood dragon could react, a cold light flashed in the eyes of the violent ape. He suddenly threw a punch and ruthlessly smashed below one of the 9 heads of the 9-headed blood dragon. A woof! A long mournful howl sounded like a wolf's howl. The 9-headed blood dragon's body, which was only about 10,000 feet long, instantly turned into a bloody light and blasted toward the direction where the azure rock flew backward. Yi Xian had also used all his strength in this punch. Although he did not directly explode the head of the 9-headed blood dragon, a huge bump appeared on its head. As his body flew backward, the 9-headed blood dragon, who was howling miserably, spat out another arrow of blood. All of this had been planned out by Yi Xian. At this moment, as the azure sky rock and the 9-headed blood dragon were sent flying by his punch one after another, these 2 old fellows were already tens of billions of miles away from the edge of the forbidden land of rising sun. A cold light flashed in the eyes of the violent ape. With a shake of its shoulders, it instantly rushed towards that area. That was where he had chosen for the upcoming battle. Due to the distance, no matter how intense the battle was, the aftermath of the battle would not affect the forbidden land of rising Sunday. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Almost at the same time that Yi Xian rushed towards the area where the azure rock and the 9-headed blood dragon were flying backward, in the surrounding void, those starry sky experts, fierce beasts, and survivors who were watching the battle from afar instantly appeared one after another. Then a figure rushed out. Just now the 9-headed blood dragon spat out 2 arrows of blood in succession. This was also the precious blood of the desolate venerable. All the starry sky experts, fierce beasts, and survivors who rushed out were here to collect the precious blood. Unfortunately, although the nine-headed blood dragon spat out 2 arrows of blood in succession, in order to make it more convenient for him to use the bloodline ability of the blood dragon demon fist, his current body size was not too big, only about 10,000 feet. His entire body size was only 10,000 feet, and his head was at most a few hundred feet. How big was the blood arrow that he spat out? Not to mention pouring down like rain in the void. If one did not pay attention, it would be difficult to find the scattered traces of the precious blood in such a long distance in such a vast void. At this moment, there were hundreds of thousands of starry sky experts, fierce beasts, and survivors who rushed out. Compared to the number of people who were alarmed when the azure rock spat out a blood arrow and turned into a rain of blood that scattered over a large area of the void, it was nearly 10 times more. This kind of scene could not be described by the words, "Too many monks and too little porridge." It was so embarrassing that it made people speechless. In the void, these starry sky experts, fierce beasts, and survivors who rushed out were squeezing their heads in order to compete for the precious blood of the desolate venerable. Their eyes emitted green light, and they quickly fought. In an instant, angry roars and roars sounded like a tide, and there were even some existences who were cursing loudly. The object of their curses was clearly the precious blood of the desolate venerable, who spat out 2 arrows of blood in succession and left in the void. However, it was far inferior to the azure rock. Tiandoping's 9-headed blood dragon. Although he was a powerful primordial supreme, he was now entangled with the master of the magic hall. Moreover, he was at a disadvantage, so he had no time to pay attention to this side. In addition, there were so many people talking, so it was difficult to distinguish who was cursing loudly in a short time. Curse. This kind of opportunity was rare. Although he did not have the strength to fight with the 9-headed blood dragon, it was naturally an extremely satisfying thing to curse a powerful primordial supreme in public. It was also not to be missed. Roar! Roar! Screech! At this moment, the azure sky rock and the 9-headed blood dragon, who were sent flying by Yixian's punch, were barely able to disperse the majestic power of this punch, and their bodies stabilized in the void. The azure sky rock was fine when he suddenly heard the curses, but the 9-headed blood dragon was so angry that his body trembled. As he raised his head and roared, he almost spat out a mouthful of blood again. At this moment, his entire mind was a little muddled. He did not understand what was going on in this era. He was a powerful desolate venerable who had lived from the end of the desolate era to the current era. He was the dignified ancestor of the blood dragon clan. But now he was being attacked by a group of ants who were not even at the level of the desolate era. He cursed loudly, and it was not just 1 or 2. Listening to this sound, it was clearly a tide of curses. For the sake of a mouthful of old blood, these guys, did they all want to die? Roar! Awesome! But this is just the beginning. The real show is yet to come. 2 consecutive punches had sent 2 powerful primordial sovereigns flying. Even for Yixian, such a battle record and experience was unprecedented. At this moment his heart was surging with emotions, and a sense of heroism roared and surged in his chest. As he turned into a ray of light and shot over, he closed in on the azure sky rock and the 9-headed blood dragon that had just stabilized their bodies. The voice of Yixian's divine sense sounded again, invisibly enveloping the entire vast and boundless void. Come, come, come. Cut the crap. Let's fight again. 300 rounds. Those 2 punches just now were just a warm-up for me. It's not easy to find 2 tough guys who can take a beating. Today, I must play to my heart's content. Don't be too weak. You must hold on for a while longer. Chapter 4695. Boom. Rumble. Bang. In the void, an earth-shattering roar sounded. The violent ape punched the 9-headed blood serpent's abdomen, sending him flying into the sky. One of the serpent's heads suddenly opened and spat out a mouthful of blood. Although he was a supreme primordial, he was only at the first stage of the supreme primordial realm. Facing a powerful third-stage desolate venerable, it was expected that he would be crushed. At this moment, the 9-headed blood serpent's heart was completely broken. Previously, the reason why he decided to rush to this void fragment immediately was partly because his only direct descendant, the Crown Prince Serpent, had been killed, and he was furious. But on the other hand, it was also because after the Crown Prince Serpent was killed, the divine soul mark he left in his body contained some information about the attacker. From that information, the nine-headed blood serpent analyzed that the starry sky violent ape that killed the Crown Prince Serpent was not a supreme primordial at all. Its desolate venerable cultivation was increased by some kind of bloodline secret technique. Therefore, although the starry sky violent ape had the battle strength of a second-stage supreme primordial realm when it killed the Crown Prince Serpent, the nine-headed blood serpent still did not take it seriously. In his opinion, this kind of bloodline secret technique that was used to increase one's cultivation strength had a certain time limit or flaw. For example, the Battle Lion clan's 9 changes of the Wild Lion bloodline ability could increase one's cultivation strength by 9 small stages under the 9th change. But this kind of increase also had a certain time limit. As an ally of the blood-devouring Battle Lion for many years, the nine-headed blood serpent was naturally very clear about this. In this case, even if he was alone, it was enough to deal with the starry sky violent ape, let alone with the help of the azure sky rock. It could be said that before seeing the starry sky violent ape and starting this battle, both the nine-headed blood serpent and the azure sky rock were extremely confident that they could kill the starry sky violent ape in this battle. After all, as long as the time limit of the opponent's bloodline secret technique was over, the starry sky violent ape's cultivation strength would plummet. At most, it would be at the supreme primordial realm. Either one of them could easily kill it. However, reality was often not what one wanted. It was impossible for them to know about the bloodline ability of the War Lion race's 9 Berserk Lion transformations. After Yi Xian changed it into the 9 transformations of the demonic ape, he had already perfectly mended all the flaws in this bloodline ability. The time limit for increasing one's strength only existed in the 9 changes of the Berserk Lion. This problem did not exist in the 9 changes of the demonic ape. Moreover, none of them had expected that Bao Yuan, who was originally a second-order Venerable Realm expert, would actually break through to the third-order Venerable Realm in a short span of 3 months. In this way, the gap in strength between them and the violent ape was instantly widened. This resulted in the two of them being brutally beaten by the other party even though they had joined hands. They could only defend and did not have the ability to retaliate. Bao Yuan. This sovereign does not believe that the desolate supremacy cultivation you raised using a secret technique can be maintained like this. It must have a certain time limit. Who knows, it might be the next second. Die. Swish. Swish, swish, swish. At this moment, as the 9-headed blood flood dragon was once again blasted flying by Yi Xian's punch and retreated 5 billion kilometers, the azure skyrock that was hundreds of millions of meters in size also fell into a frenzy. It raised its head and let out a violent roar. The voice of its divine sense was filled with unwillingness. At the same time, a large amount of green mist gushed out from its huge body. The wind and clouds rolled, covering a corner of the void, trapping the entire battlefield, covering tens of billions of miles at this moment. The soul-stirring sound of flapping wings filled the air, and the entire area shrouded in green mist began to tremble slightly. Countless arrows in the shape of feathers appeared from the void. They were like green goose feathers fluttering in the air, covering the sky and the sun. They all blasted toward the violent ape. This kind of scattered attack is useful against existences weaker than you. Unfortunately, this king doesn't care about it at all. Facing the overwhelming green feather phantasms, the violent ape curled its lips. As the voice of divine sense was transmitted, it shook its shoulder, stretched its right arm, and instantly blasted toward the azure rock. When the azure rock used this bloodline ability, the reason why Yi Xian blocked it was because the battlefield at that time was too close to the edge of the rising sun forbidden land. He was a little worried that the residual power of the demonic rock, sealing the heavens bloodline ability, would affect his subordinates in the rising sun forbidden land. But now, the battlefield of the three of them was more than 50 billion miles away from the edge of the rising sun forbidden land. There was no need to worry about this at all. With the strength of the physical body of the violent ape, its cultivation strength was not as good as his azure rocks. He could almost ignore some of the power bombardment. Now this kind of scattered attack was naturally even more meaningless. Puff. Puff puff puff. And that was indeed the case. At this moment, as the countless green feather phantasms that blotted out the sky and covered the earth shot over, the violent ape completely ignored them. As he swung his fist, it was unknown how many feather phantasms landed on his body. The muffled sound was like raindrops resounding endlessly. However, the violent ape's figure was not affected at all. To him, these green feather phantasms could not break through his defense at all. They could not even scratch off a piece of his skin. At most, they could only cut off some of his ape hair. Boom! Bam! Uft! Almost in the next moment, the violent ape, who had shot out at an extremely fast speed, had already arrived in front of the great azure sky rock. With a punch, it instantly sent the great azure sky rock flying backwards once again. This attack used all of its strength. The azure rock that was sent flying opened its mouth and spat out another blood arrow. It was like a heavy rain that sprinkled in the void. In the distance, the eyes of the various experts, fierce beasts, and survivors who had just finished snatching the small amount of desolate venerable's blood that was scattered by the 2 blood arrows spat out by the 9-headed blood dragon instantly turned green when they saw this scene. Unfortunately, this bloody battlefield was now enveloped by the endless green energy feathers formed by the demonic rock, sealing the heaven's bloodline ability that the azure rock had previously used. It was too dangerous. They didn't dare to approach at all. They could only stay in the distant void and watch as the precious blood rained down from the sky. Their faces were pained as they wrung their wrists and stomped their feet. Huh? Chapter 4696. Roar. Screech. Almost as soon as Yixian turned his head, a unicorn's roar and a demon crocodile's roar resounded through the sky, shaking this vast and boundless untainted land fragment void. Then 2 clear and crisp sounds came from the end of the void in front of them on the right. Hiss! Hiss! In an incomparably quiet void of the universe, a crisp sound of ripping silk suddenly came. 2 huge black cracks were torn open in the sky, one on the left and one on the right. 2 figures stepped out of them one after another, and the cultivation aura emitted from their bodies was actually at the terrifying primordial supreme realm. This scene was seen by the experts, the ferocious beasts of the universe, and the survivors of the primordial era on the distant battleships. In an instant, a large wave of gasps was heard. Everyone was dumbfounded, and their minds were buzzing. They were completely frightened. The figures that rushed out of these 2 void cracks were all ferocious beasts of the universe, and they were ancient legendary existences. One was a blood-red unicorn, and the other was a 9-secret demon crocodile. Their bodies were tens of millions of feet long. Although they were not too big and looked smaller than the Cyan Sky Rock, the cultivation aura emitted from their bodies was definitely not something that the Cyan Sky Rock and the 9-headed blood dragon could compare to. Compared to, these 2 powerful primordial supreme masters were actually at level 3 of the primordial era, which was the same cultivation as the master of the magic hall who was beating the Cyan Sky Rock and the 9-headed blood dragon. In fact, it wasn't just the other people watching from afar. Even Yixian had an expression of shock on his face when he saw these 2 fellows appear. He naturally knew these 2 blood-red unicorn and 9-secret demon crocodile. Back in the origin of all evil star area of the first universe, Yixian had used the all-evil poison to harm several existences at the other end of the netherworld furnace rune chain, including them. At that time, the 9-headed blood dragon had also been harmed. Because his cultivation was only at the remote antiquity realm, no matter how angry he was, he had no choice but to go to the source of all evil star area. However, the bloody unicorn and the 9 serenities demon crocodile each sent out an energy clone, which descended on the netherworld cauldron's rune chains. At that time, if it wasn't for the headless corpse that had transformed into a corpse lantern tattoo and attached to Yixian's left chest, releasing a wisp of heat that concealed Yixian's figure and aura, he would have suffered a tragic fate. Later on, the bloody unicorn and the 9 gloom demon crocodile's energy clones searched for a while but to no avail. They vented their frustrations in the root of all evil star field and left. Since then, Yixian had never seen them again. Who would have thought that they would suddenly meet again in the void of this fragment of the untainted world? These 2 old guys, like the 9-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock, were ancient existences that had lived from the distant untainted world to the present. However, when the 9-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock participated in the untainted world war, it was already the end of the untainted world. The war was almost over. Moreover, at that time they were only at the late antiquity realm and were not the main battle force of that untainted world war. They didn't even participate in the real core battle. However, the bloody unicorn and the 9 gloom demon crocodile were different. Yixian vaguely remembered that there was information related to them in the inherited images of the fallen sky bow and other bloodline abilities. In the images of that untainted world war, he had seen the bloody unicorn in the enemy camp. At that time it was fighting with the giant golden dragon. As for the 9 gloom demon crocodile, he didn't pay attention to it. However, judging from the attitude of these two old guys, the 9 gloom demon crocodile was obviously not weaker than the bloody unicorn. In other words, these two were terrifying existences that could be evenly matched with the golden divine dragon. If their cultivation strength was restored to its peak state, they could definitely destroy this entire star field with a thought. After all, the golden divine dragon, the void tortoise, the desolate yaksha, and so on were all existences at the peak of the 9th order of the ancients. These two bloody unicorn and the 9 gloom demon crocodile could fight with existences at the level of the golden divine dragon. If their peak cultivation had not reached the peak of the 9th order of the ancients, they would definitely be desolate masters at the 7th or 8th order of the ancients. Yixian definitely could not deal with existences at this level. Even if he only encountered one of them, he could only immediately turn around and flee. Unfortunately, the wounds left by the bloody unicorn and the 9 gloom demon crocodile in that untainted world war had obviously not healed yet. This was what it was supposed to be. Even the void tortoise, which was known for its amazing defensive power, had only recovered to the 7th or 8th order of the desolate master when it appeared in the untainted world war. The injuries suffered by the bloody unicorn and the 9 gloom demon crocodile were obviously more serious. It was precisely because of this that the cultivation aura emitted from their bodies was only at the 3rd order of the ancients, which was the peak of the early desolate master stage. Since this was the case for Yixian, even if these two powerful ancient existences descended at the same time, he had nothing to fear. However, the bloody unicorn and the 9 gloom demon crocodile had no enmity with him. Even if Yixian had used the rune chains of the netherworld furnace to harm them in the source of all evil star field, these two old guys did not know about it. Therefore, although they didn't know why they'd suddenly descended into this void fragment of the great desolate world, if it wasn't necessary, Yixian didn't want to take the initiative to provoke them. Of course, he was not afraid of them, but after all, he had the forbidden land of rising behind him. Now in this untainted world fragment void, he already had 2 desolate master opponents, the 9-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock. There was really no need to make another strong enemy. Unfortunately, although he did not want to provoke the bloody unicorn and the 9 gloom demon crocodile, others obviously did not think so. At this time, as the figure completely descended into this untainted world fragment void, the bloody unicorn and the 9 gloom demon crocodile at the end of the untainted world fragment void in front of the left side of the untainted world fragment void actually turned their heads to look at the place where the battle was taking place. Under the bloody light bursting out of their eyes, 2 incomparably deep divine sense voices came instantly, revealing an